The woman walked into the ceremony at exactly 2:34 p.m. Not a guest, not late, not lost. She walked in like she owned the place, like she had every right to be there, like she'd been invited. She was wearing an emerald green dress, elegant, expensive, deliberate. Not white because she wasn't trying to upstage the bride. She was trying to destroy the groom, and she had the paperwork to do it. I was standing at my usual position, side of the ballroom, tablet in hand, monitoring the ceremony timeline. Everything was running perfectly. The string quartet had played Pachelbel flawlessly. The bride had walked down the aisle on her father's arm, looking like a magazine cover. The groom had smiled that practiced, perfect smile as she approached. 300 guests in designer clothes watched from gold Chiavari chairs. Crystal chandeliers caught the afternoon light. White roses and orchids covered every surface, the altar, the aisle, the columns. It was beautiful, sophisticated, expensive. A $300,000 wedding at the Peninsula Club, one of the most exclusive venues in the country. Everything was perfect until the woman in green walked through the doors. I noticed her immediately because that's my job, to notice when things don't fit the pattern. She wasn't on the guest list. She hadn't checked in at the entrance. She'd somehow bypassed security and the ushers and walked straight into a ceremony in progress. The officiant was mid-sentence. If anyone here has objections to this union, speak now or forever hold your... I object, the woman said. Her voice was clear, calm, cutting through the ceremony like a knife. Every head turned. The bride, Christina Morrison, 32, old money, impeccable breeding, looked confused. The groom, David Chen, 38, tech entrepreneur, self-made millionaire, went absolutely white. And I knew in that instant that whatever was about to happen, I'd been planning a wedding that should never have taken place. I'm sorry, the woman continued, walking down the aisle now, her heels clicking against the marble floor. But this wedding cannot proceed. Because David Chen is already married. To me, she stopped at the altar, pulled an envelope from her clutch, opened it with the practiced ease of someone who'd been preparing for this moment for a very long time. My name is Elena Rodriguez, she said, pulling out a document. And this is our marriage certificate. We were married 7 years ago in San Diego. We are still legally married, which means this wedding, she gestured to the elaborately decorated ballroom, it said Bigamy. And David knows it. The silence was absolute. Then Christina, the bride in the $35,000 couture gown, said in a voice barely above a whisper, David. David stood frozen, his mouth opened, closed, open again. I can explain, he said. Can you? Elena pulled out another document. Because I have the marriage certificate. I have bank records showing you're still using our joint account. I have emails you sent me 3 months ago trying to borrow money, and I have a... She pulled out a third document. A statement from your divorce attorney saying you never filed the final paperwork. We're still married, David, legally, officially, completely. 300 guests erupted into chaos. I'm Maya Sinclair. I've been planning weddings for 21 years. I've seen grooms faint, brides run, family fights, vendor disasters, and weather catastrophes. But I'd never seen a groom's first wife crash a wedding with legal documents proving he was committing a felony. Until that Saturday afternoon at the Peninsula Club. This is the story of the most expensive wedding I ever planned, the fraud I almost facilitated, and the con artist who'd been running the same scheme for over a decade, marrying wealthy women, draining their resources, and moving on to the next victim without ever bothering to get divorced. And it started 6 months earlier, when David Chen walked into my office with a lie so perfect, I almost believed every word.
Before we begin today's story, I'd love to know something about you. Tell me, from which city are you watching? Leave your answer in the comments below. Now, take a deep breath, sit back, and let's begin this journey together.
David Chen contacted me in October through a referral from the Peninsula Club. The club's event coordinator, Marcus, called me personally. Maya, I have a client who specifically requested you. High-budget wedding, June date, wants the full Peninsula experience. He mentioned seeing your work at the Castellano event. The Castellano event, Lauren's wedding that never was. The poisoning case that had made national news 3 years ago? He wants me because of that wedding. I asked carefully. He said he was impressed by your discretion during a crisis. Said you handled everything professionally. Wants someone who can manage complicated situations. Interesting phrasing. Complicated situations. Send him my information, I said. I'll set up a consultation. David emailed within an hour. Professional, efficient, checking my availability for a video call since he was traveling for business. We scheduled for the following Tuesday at 2 p.m. When he appeared on my screen, my first thought was, this man knows exactly how handsome he is. David Chen was objectively attractive in that polished, generic way that wealthy men often are. Dark hair, perfectly styled. Designer shirt, expensive watch visible, background showing what looked like a luxury hotel room. He smiled and I saw the practiced charm immediately, the kind that's been rehearsed in front of mirrors and tested on countless people. Maya, thank you so much for making time, he said. His voice was smooth, confident. I've heard incredible things about your work. I appreciate that. Tell me about your wedding vision. My fiancée Christina and I want something elegant but personal. We're thinking June 14th at the Peninsula Club. We've already secured the date, put down the deposit last week. That's budget is flexible, but we're thinking in the $250,000 to $300,000 range. I made notes. High budget, prestigious venue, flexible timeline, on paper, and a deal client. Tell me about Christina. What's she like? She's amazing, David said, and his delivery was perfect, warm, genuine sounding, eyes lighting up at her name. We met 2 years ago at a charity gala. She's from Boston. Old family, very refined. She's been married before, briefly in her 20s, ended amicably, so she knows what she wants for a second wedding. Something sophisticated, not too showy, celebrating with close friends and family. And you? Have you been married before? No, he said smoothly. Too smoothly. I've been focused on building my company, just sold it actually, which is why we're finally able to plan the wedding we want. I'm ready to settle down, start the next chapter. It was a great story. Successful entrepreneur, ready to commit, marrying elegant woman from good family. Everything sounded perfect, except something in his delivery felt rehearsed. Like he'd told his story so many times, he'd perfected the beats. The way he paused before saying Christina's name, like he had to remember it. The way his eyes went slightly, unfocused when describing their meeting, like he was recalling a script rather than a memory. I'd love to meet Christina before we move forward, I said. I prefer meeting couples together to understand your dynamic and make sure I'm the right fit. Absolutely, David said. She's actually out of the country right now. Her mother had a health issue, so she flew to France to be with her, but she'll be back next week. How about we schedule an in-person meeting at your office? I can come to you. That would be perfect. But David, I should mention, after the Castellano case, I'm very selective about who I work with. I ask a lot of questions. I pay close attention. If anything seems off, I won't take the booking. He didn't flinch, didn't hesitate. I'd expect nothing less. That's exactly why we want you. We want someone who cares about more than just the aesthetics. Someone who's invested in the actual relationship, not just the performance. The right answer, perfectly delivered, too perfect. I scheduled the in-person consultation for the following week and spent the next 6 days trying to figure out why David Chen made me uneasy. David arrived at my office exactly on time. No Christina. I'm so sorry, he said, settling into the consultation chair with practiced ease. Christina's mother took a turn for the worse. She had to extend her trip. She's devastated to miss this meeting, but family comes first. Of course, I said, though internally I was noting, first meeting postponed, second meeting she's absent. When will she be back? Next week for sure. She wants to be involved in the planning. She's very detail-oriented. But she trusts me to get the initial conversation started. She actually asked me to show you this. He pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. The woman in the photo was beautiful. Honey blonde hair, classic features, wearing what looked like riding gear at some kind of equestrian event. Old money written all over her. That's Christina at her family's estate in Provence, David said. She's an accomplished rider. Competed nationally in her 20s. I studied the photo. The woman looked refined, elegant, exactly what David had described. She's lovely, I said. I look forward to meeting her. We spent the next hour discussing logistics. David had strong opinions about everything. The ceremony setup, the reception flow, The menu, the music. He wanted elegance, sophistication, understated luxury. No trendy details, no Instagram moments, nothing that would feel dated in 5 years. We want classic, he said, a timeless. The kind of wedding people will remember for its grace, not its gimmicks. It all sounded reasonable, tasteful, expensive in that quiet way that old money preferred. David, I need to ask some practical questions, I said, pulling up my standard client questionnaire. Combined guest count? 200. Small but meaningful. Budget breakdown. What's your priority? Where do you want to allocate the most? Resources? Food and wine, he said immediately. Christina's family is very particular about dining. We want a spectacular meal, exceptional wines. The flowers and decor can be beautiful, but don't need to be over the top. The experience is what matters. Photography? We've already booked Charles Whitmore. Charles Whitmore. The same photographer Derek Hastings had insisted on for Lauren's wedding. Expensive, prestigious, technically perfect, but emotionally sterile. I noted the choice, but said nothing. Payment structure, I said. How would you like to handle the planning fees and vendor deposits? Wire transfers, David said. Christina's family prefers not to use credit cards for large purchases. Old-fashioned, I know, but that's how they operate. I'll wire your retainer by end of week. For the vendors, I'll set up a dedicated wedding account and provide you with access to transfer funds as needed. A dedicated wedding account. That was actually smart. Kept wedding expenses separate, made tracking easier. Perfect. I'll send you the contract and banking information. One more thing, David said, pulling out a folder. Christina wanted me to give you this. Her family information, emergency contacts, all the details you'll need. She's been planning this mentally for months, so she had everything organized. He handed me the folder. Inside was a detailed document, Christina's parents' names, their estate in France, phone numbers, email addresses, Christina's own contact information, even her middle name and date of birth. It was thorough. Professional, exactly what an organized bride would provide. This is incredibly helpful, I said, genuinely impressed. You'd be surprised how many couples I have to chase down for basic information. Christina's family doesn't do anything halfway, David said with a smile. They've been planning events for generations. She knows what vendors need. We wrapped up the consultation. David signed the contract without reading it. I always find that suspicious. But some clients are just trusting or busy. He shook my hand, promised Christina would call me directly once she returned, and left. I sat at my desk afterward, staring at the folder of information, trying to identify what was bothering me. Everything was in order. Everything made sense. Successful groom, refined bride, substantial budget, prestigious venue, sophisticated vision. But something fell off. I opened the folder and looked at Christina's information again. Her email address ended in morrisonfamily.com, a personal family domain, suggesting significant wealth and established infrastructure. On impulse, I Googled Christina Morrison Boston Equestrian. Pages of results, photos of her competing, articles about her family, old Boston money, multiple generations of philanthropists and business leaders. Her father had been an ambassador. Her mother served on several cultural boards. Everything David had told me was verifiable and true. So why did I feel like I was missing something? I called my friend Jess, my lawyer friend who had helped me think through the Lauren situation years ago. Hypothetically, I said when she answered, if a client gave you perfect answers to every question, provided impeccable documentation, and had a flawless backstory that checked out completely, would you trust them? Hypothetically, no, Jess said. Perfect is suspicious. Real life is messy. People forget things. Documents are incomplete. Stories have gaps. When everything aligns too perfectly, someone's put significant effort into creating that alignment. That's what I thought. Maya, what's going on? Please tell me you're not investigating another groom. I'm not investigating. I'm just noticing. What are you noticing? I don't know yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe I'm paranoid after the Derek case. Or maybe your instincts are good and you should trust them. Jess said, what's your next step? I'm supposed to meet the bride next week. I'll get a better sense of things then. And if she doesn't show up again, then I'll know something's wrong. Christina didn't show up to the next meeting, or the one after that, or the one after that. Over the course of November, I scheduled 4 separate consultations to meet Christina Morrison. Each time, David arrived alone, with an apologetic explanation. Her mother passed away. She's devastated, handling estate matters in France. She came down with the flu, didn't want to risk getting you sick. Emergency at her father's foundation. She had to fly to New York for a board crisis. She threw her back out horseback riding. She's on bed rest. 4 meetings, 4 excuses. 4 times I met with David alone, while Christina remained mysteriously absent. After the 4th cancellation, I called David directly. David, I need to be honest with you. I can't continue planning this wedding without meeting Christina. It's been 6 weeks, and I haven't spoken to her once. That's not how I work. I completely understand, David said, his voice full of appropriate concern. This has been a terrible stretch for her, losing her mother, dealing with grief, trying to manage family obligations. But you're right. Let me arrange something this week, even if it's just a video call. You need to connect with her. I appreciate that. Because David, I'm going to be direct. It's starting to feel like Christina doesn't actually want this wedding, or doesn't exist. I said it as a joke, testing his reaction. He laughed, perfectly natural, not defensive. I promise you she exists and wants this wedding desperately. She's just been dealing with an impossible few months. Let me make this happen. 2 days later, I received an email from Christina.Morrison family. Calm. Subject. Sincere apologies from the invisible bride. Dear Maya, I owe you an enormous apology. I know David has been running interference, but the truth is I've been a disaster of a client. My mother passed away in October, and I've been drowning in estate matters, grief, and family obligations. I feel terrible that you haven't been able to meet me, especially given the substantial planning work you've already begun. Would you be available for a video call this Friday at 2 p.m.? I promise to actually show up this time. I'd love to finally connect, share my vision, and convince you that I'm not just a figment of David's imagination. With gratitude and embarrassment, Christina. The email was warm, self-deprecating, apologetic. It sounded genuine. I responded as confirming the Friday call, then did something I hadn't done before. I copied Christina's email address and Googled it. Nothing came up. No social media connected to that email. No forum posts, no previous correspondence indexed anywhere. That wasn't necessarily suspicious. Wealthy people often kept their digital footprints minimal. But combined with everything else, it added to my growing unease. Friday at 2 p.m., I logged into the video call. A woman appeared on screen. Honey blonde hair, elegant features, expensive cashmere sweater. She looked exactly like the photos David had shown me. Maya, finally! She smiled, and it looked genuine. Thank you for your patience. I've been the worst client ever, and you've been so gracious. I'm just glad to finally meet you, I said, studying her face, her mannerisms, looking for... What? Signs she was being coerced? Signs she was fake? I didn't even know. Before we dive into wedding planning, I need to apologize properly. My mother's death was unexpected, and I've been in France dealing with estate lawyers and family drama. David has been an absolute saint, handling everything while I've been a wreck. I'm only now starting to surface and be a functional human again. I'm so sorry for your loss, I said, and I meant it. We don't have to dive into details today if you're not ready. Actually, planning the wedding has been one of the few bright spots, Christina said. It's something happy to focus on. Something about building a future instead of mourning the past. So please, let's talk details. I want to be involved. I want this to be real. We spent 90 minutes discussing her vision. She had opinions, strong, specific ones. She wanted white and gold, not silver. Roses and peonies, not orchids. A seated dinner, not buffet stations. A string quartet for the ceremony, a jazz band for the reception. She wanted elegant but not stuffy, sophisticated but not cold. Everything she said aligned with what David had described. They'd clearly discussed the wedding extensively. They were on the same page about every detail. It should have been reassuring. Instead, it made me more suspicious. Because in 21 years of planning weddings, I'd learned the couples are never this aligned unless one person is controlling all the decisions, or someone has carefully coached the other person on what to say. Christina, I said toward the end of the call, can I ask you something personal? Of course. How did you and David meet? She smiled. Charity gala in Boston 2 years ago. My family's foundation was hosting. David had just donated a substantial amount. His company had just been acquired and he was feeling generous. We were seated at the same table. He made me laugh, which is not easy to do at those stuffy events. We talked all night. And what made you decide to marry him? He's kind, she said without hesitation. Genuinely kind. I was married before. Briefly, disastrously, to someone my family approved of who turned out to be a nightmare. This time, I chose for myself. David isn't from my world, doesn't care about all the society nonsense. He's brilliant and self-made and treats me like a partner, not a possession. After my first marriage, that matters more than anything. It was a good answer, thoughtful, vulnerable, the kind of answer that should have made me trust her. But something in her delivery felt rehearsed, like she'd been asked this question before and had perfected the response. I'm glad you found that, I said carefully. You deserve to be treated well. Thank you, and thank you for taking us on as clients despite my terrible showing. I promise to be more present from here on out. David's been carrying too much of this. After the call, I sat at my desk feeling more confused than ever. Christina existed. She was real, articulate, engaged in the planning. The wedding was legitimate, so why did every interaction feel like a performance? I pulled up David's contract and looked at the banking information he'd provided for the wedding account. Then I did something I'd never done before. I called my bank and asked if they could verify that the account was legitimate and in David Chen's name. I'm sorry, Mrs. Sinclair, the banker said after checking. I can't provide details on an account that isn't yours, but I can confirm that the routing number and account number you have are valid and active. Can you tell me whose name is on the account? Not without authorization from the account holder. It was a dead end. I had no legal right to investigate my client's finances. But I did have a friend who might have other options. I called Michelle Yang, my friend from the Derek case, now running Safe Witness Coalition. Michelle, I need advice. I have a client who seems perfect, too perfect. Everything checks out, but my instincts say something's wrong. How do you investigate someone without overstepping boundaries? What's triggering your instincts? Groom showed up alone for multiple meetings with excuses about why the bride couldn't attend. Bride finally appeared, seems legitimate, but something about their dynamic feels off. Everything they say aligns too perfectly. Plus, the groom insisted on wire transfers for everything and set up a wedding-specific account rather than just using personal accounts. Wire transfers are a red flag, Michelle said immediately. Cash-adjacent transactions are harder to trace, and a dedicated account could be to hide where money's actually going. But it could also just be good organization. Could be. Maya, you know what your gut is telling you. The question is what you're going to do about it. I can't investigate a client just because I have a vague feeling. No, but you can be thorough. Run background checks. There are services that do that. Google them extensively. See if anything comes up that contradicts their story. Look for inconsistencies. And if you find something, then you decide what to do with that information. After we hung up, I opened my laptop and started searching. I Googled David Chen, tech entrepreneur San Diego. Dozens of results, articles about his company, Tech Forward Solutions, coverage of the acquisition, interviews where he discussed his journey from immigrant parents to successful founder. Everything checked out. Then I tried a different search, David Chen marriage, and that's when I found it, buried on page 4 of the results. A wedding announcement from 7 years ago in the San Diego Tribune. Elena Rodriguez and David Chen united in matrimony. I clicked the link. The article was short, standard wedding announcement. Small ceremony, family and friends, couple met through mutual connections. The photo showed David Chen, younger, but unmistakably him, standing next to a beautiful woman with dark hair. Not Christina, Elena. My hands were shaking as I kept searching. David Chen, Elena Rodriguez divorce. No results. David Chen, Elena Rodriguez. The wedding announcement. A few photos on what looked like Elena's Facebook page from years ago. Privacy settings now locked down. Nothing about a divorce. I searched for Elena Rodriguez directly. Found a LinkedIn profile. She was a pharmaceutical researcher in San Diego, educated, successful, professional. I searched Elena Rodriguez, David Chen, divorce records San Diego, public records databases. I'd need to pay for access, but it would show if they'd legally divorced. I paid the $29.99 fee and ran the search. No divorce records found for David Chen and Elena Rodriguez in San Diego County. I expanded the search to all of California. No records. I sat back, staring at my screen, my heart pounding. David Chen had been married 7 years ago. There was no record of that marriage ending, which meant he might still be married to Elena Rodriguez, which meant the $300,000 wedding I was planning for him and Christina Morrison was potentially bigamy. And I had about 6 months to figure out what to do about it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat up until 3 a.m., searching every database I could access, looking for proof that David and Elena had divorced. Nothing. I searched for records in other states, thinking maybe they'd filed elsewhere. Nothing. I looked for any indication that their marriage had ended legally. Nothing, nothing, nothing. By dawn, I had two options: confront David directly or investigate further without him knowing. Confronting him would tip him off. If he was running a con, he'd disappear or create fake divorce records or gaslight me into thinking I'd made a mistake. I'd lose my chance to actually stop this. So I decided to investigate. First step, confirm that Christina Morrison was real and actually engaged to David Chen. I called the Peninsula Club and asked to speak to Marcus, the event coordinator. Marcus, quick question about the Chen-Morrison wedding. When David booked the venue, was Christina with him? Let me check the booking notes. I heard clicking. No, actually, he came alone. Said Christina was traveling but had authorized him to put down the deposit. He had a signed authorization letter from her, so we proceeded. Did you ever verify her signature? We don't typically do that for clients. Is everything okay? I'm sure it's fine. Just doing my due diligence. Next, I tried something I'd never done before. I called the Morrison family estate in France. I found the number through Christina's emergency contact information. It rang 6 times before someone answered in French. Bonjour, Residence Morrison? Hello, do you speak English? I'm trying to reach Christina Morrison. A pause. Then in accented English, I'm sorry, Miss Christina is not here. May I ask who is calling? I'm her wedding planner, Maya Sinclair. I'm just trying to confirm some details for her upcoming wedding. Another pause, longer this time. Miss Christina's wedding? Yes, in June at the Peninsula Club. I have this number listed as her family contact. I'm sorry, but I think there is confusion. Miss Christina is not getting married. She has been here in France for several months, yes, dealing with her mother's estate, but there is no wedding planned. My blood went cold. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Miss Christina is not engaged, no wedding. Perhaps you have the wrong Morrison family? Christina Morrison, daughter of Ambassador Morrison? Yes, that is correct, but no wedding. Could I speak with Christina directly? She is not available now. Would you like me to give her a message? Yes. Please ask her to call Maya Sinclair immediately. It's urgent. I left my number and hung up, my hands shaking. The real Christina Morrison wasn't getting married. Which meant the woman I'd been video calling, the woman whose wedding I was planning, was either not Christina Morrison, or was Christina Morrison, who had no idea David was planning a wedding in her name. I pulled up the video recording I'd made of our consultation call. I record all client meetings for note-taking purposes, disclosed in my contract. I took screenshots of Christina's face. Then I did a reverse image search. Multiple results came up. The photos appeared on several websites, stock photo sites, modeling portfolios, social media profiles under different names. The woman I'd been talking to was an actress, or a model, or a con artist playing a role. Not Christina Morrison. I felt sick. David Chen was running a con. He'd hired someone to impersonate his fiancée. He'd created fake documents, a fake email address, a fake wedding to... What was the end game? And then I remembered the wedding account he'd set up, the wire transfers, the $300,000 budget. He wasn't planning to get married. He was planning to steal $300,000 by having me transfer funds to vendors who probably didn't exist, to pay for a wedding that would never happen, while he drained the account and disappeared. Or worse, He was planning to actually go through with a bigamous marriage to someone who had no idea his previous marriage was still legally valid, giving him access to her wealth and family resources. I needed help. I called Detective Chen, Sarah Chen, the detective who'd worked the Derek Hastings case. We'd stayed in touch over the years. Maya, it's been too long. What's going on? I think I'm planning a wedding for a bigamist who's running a financial fraud scheme. Silence. Then, okay, I'm going to need you to explain that very slowly and in detail. I told her everything. The missing bride who eventually appeared, but was fake. The wedding announcement I'd found, the lack of divorce records, the reverse image search, the conversation with the real Christina Morrison staff. This is complex, Chen said. If David Chen is still married to Elena Rodriguez and he's planning to marry someone else, whether it's the real Christina Morrison or someone impersonating her, that's bigamy, which is illegal in California. If he's also running a financial fraud scheme using fake vendors and a fake wedding, that's wire fraud, which is federal. But we need more evidence before we can move. What kind of evidence? We need to confirm he's still married. We need to confirm the Christina Morrison in your videos isn't the real Christina Morrison. We need to prove he's planning to defraud vendors or steal wedding funds. And ideally, we need his first wife, Elena, to cooperate. How do I find Elena? Very carefully. If David finds out you're investigating, he'll disappear. Let me do some digging officially. In the meantime, keep planning the wedding, act like everything's normal. See if you can get him to reveal more about his plans. You want me to help him commit a crime? I want you to gather evidence while I build a case. Can you do that? I thought about Lauren, about how I'd orchestrated a medical crisis to save her life, about how I'd been willing to bend roles and take risks when someone was in danger. Was someone in danger here? Was fake Christina? Was the real Christina Morrison? Were future victims who'd fall for David's next scam? Yes, I said, I can do that. Good, I'll contact Elena Rodriguez and see if she'll talk to me. You keep David Chen talking. See if he mentions any vendors, any financial arrangements, anything that helps us prove what he's planning. And if he actually tries to go through with the wedding, then we stop him, publicly, with the first wife there to prove he's committing bigamy. But Maya, be careful. Financial con artists can be dangerous when cornered. Don't let him know you suspect anything. After I hung up, I sat in my office and thought about what I was about to do. 6 months of pretending to plan a wedding I knew was fake. 6 months of gathering evidence against a client. 6 months of playing a role, just like David and fake Christina were playing roles. It was exhausting just thinking about it, but someone had to stop him, and I was in the perfect position to do it. So I opened my email and wrote to David. Subject: vendor proposals and December timeline. David, it was wonderful to finally connect with Christina. She's as lovely as you described, and I'm so glad she's feeling well enough to be involved in the planning. I've put together a proposal from several vendors for your review. Let's schedule a time next week to go over options for florals, photography assistance, videography, and catering details. Looking forward to bringing your vision to life. Best, Maya, I hit send, then open a new document and started documenting everything. Date, time, evidence found, actions taken. Just like with Lauren, I was building a case. Just like with Derek, I was planning to expose a criminal at his own wedding. But this time, I knew exactly what I was doing from the start. And this time, when the wedding day arrived, I'd make sure there was a very special guest in attendance. A woman in an emerald green dress, carrying a marriage certificate, ready to stop a bigamist before he could say, I do. For the next 6 months, I lived a double life. By day, I was Maya Sinclair, professional wedding planner, coordinating the Chen Morrison wedding with careful attention to every detail. By night, I was Maya Sinclair, amateur detective, working with Detective Chen to build a case against David Chen for bigamy and fraud. In part 2, I'll tell you about Elena Rodriguez, the first wife who had no idea her husband was planning wedding number 2. About the confrontation where Detective Chen and I told her what David was doing. About her choice to help us stop him or to walk away and let him destroy someone else's life. I'll tell you about the fake vendors David tried to use and how we caught him attempting to funnel money through shell companies. About the moment I finally met the real Christina Morrison and had to tell her that someone was using her identity to commit fraud. About the careful game of pretending everything was fine while gathering evidence. About the vendors who knew something was wrong but couldn't prove it. About the moment David almost figured out I was investigating him. And about the decision we made, Detective Chen, Elena, the real Christina, and me, about exactly how to stop him. Because we had options. We could arrest him quietly and cancel the wedding. We could tip him off and watch him run, then track him down. Or we could let him walk into his own wedding in front of 300 guests and expose him in the most public, humiliating, legally documented way possible. We chose option 3. Because sometimes justice isn't just about stopping a crime. It's about making sure everyone sees exactly what was about to happen. Detective Sarah Chen called me 3 days after I'd reported David. "I found Elena Rodriguez," she said without preamble. "She's in San Diego, still working as a pharmaceutical researcher, still using Chen as her last name professionally, which is how I confirmed they're still legally married. Maya, she has no idea David's planning another wedding." "What do you mean she has no idea?" "I mean, they're separated, but not divorced. Elena thinks they're in the middle of divorce proceedings. David told her 6 months ago that his lawyer was handling the paperwork, that it was just a matter of waiting for court dates and final signatures. She's been waiting patiently, assuming it's being processed." "But he never filed anything?" "Correct. There's no divorce filing in any California county, no paperwork anywhere. He told her he was divorcing her, let her believe it was in progress, and then started planning a wedding to someone else while still legally married to her." I felt sick. So she's a victim too. Very much so. And Maya, here's where it gets worse. I looked into David Chen's financial history. This isn't his first time doing this. "What?" "David Chen has been married at least 3 times, possibly 4. I found records in Washington State, Oregon, and California. Different women, all wealthy or with access to family money. He marries them, gains access to their finances, drains accounts over several months, then disappears before they realize what's happening. The women are usually too embarrassed to press charges. They were conned by someone they loved. They don't want just the publicity. So David moves to a new state, uses a variation of his name, and does it again. Oh my God. Elena Rodriguez is actually lucky. She didn't have much money when they married. She was a grad student. He married her thinking her family had resources, but they didn't. So instead of draining her accounts and leaving, he's been trying to borrow money from her while simultaneously pursuing wealthier targets. Elena mentioned he's asked her for loans several times in the past year, saying he was between investments. She said no every time. And now he's going after Christina Morrison, whose family is worth an estimated $200 million. If David can marry into that family, even briefly, the amount he could steal is astronomical. But I talked to Christina's staff. They said she's not engaged. I called the real Christina Morrison myself. Detective Chen said, "She's in France, managing her mother's estate. She's never heard of David Chen. Someone is using her identity, her name, her family information, her background to create a fake fiancée. David probably hired an actress or is working with an accomplice." So the woman I've been video calling, is someone pretending to be Christina Morrison? We need to find out who she really is. How? You're going to schedule another video call with fake Christina. During that call, you're going to ask her very specific questions only the real Christina would know. Family details, estate information, things David couldn't have researched. We'll catch her in inconsistencies. Then we'll confront her and offer her a deal. Cooperate with our investigation or face fraud charges. She might just disappear. She might. We have to try. In the meantime, I want to talk to Elena Rodriguez in person. Would you be willing to come with me? She might be more comfortable talking to you. Another woman who's seen through David's act than to me alone. When? Tomorrow. I'm driving to San Diego first thing in the morning. I'll pick you up at 6 a.m. Elena Rodriguez lived in a modest apartment in North Park, a neighborhood near San Diego State University. Detective Chen and I arrived at 9:45 a.m. after she'd confirmed by phone that she'd meet with us. She answered the door, looking wary but composed. Early 30s, dark hair pulled back. Wearing scrubs, she'd just gotten off a night shift at the research lab. Detective Chen, Miss Sinclair, She shook our hands. Come in, I made coffee. Though I'm not sure I understand what this is about. You said it was about David. Her apartment was small but tidy. Bookshelves full of textbooks and scientific journals. A small desk with a laptop. Photos on the walls, family, friends, a few from what looked like her wedding to David years ago. We sat at her kitchen table. Detective Chen pulled out a folder. Elena, I'm going to be direct because I think you deserve the truth immediately. David Chen is planning to marry another woman in June. He's been planning this wedding for months, and according to our research, he never finalized your divorce. You're still legally married to him. Elena stared at her. That's not possible. David told me 6 months ago that the paperwork was filed. He said his lawyer was handling everything. He said we were just waiting for court dates. Did you see any paperwork? Did you sign anything? No, but David said California allows uncontested divorces to be processed without both parties present as long as the terms were agreed upon. I agreed to everything. We didn't have kids, didn't have shared assets. I just wanted it over. He said he'd handle it. He lied, I said gently. There's no divorce filing anywhere in California. You're still married to him. Elena's face went pale. Why would he lie about that? Detective Chen opened the folder and pulled out printouts. Because he's planning to marry a woman named Christina Morrison, or someone using her identity, who comes from an extremely wealthy family. If he's still married to you, this new marriage would be bigamy, which is illegal, but I don't think he cares about the legal ramifications. I think he's planning to access Christina's family wealth, drain what he can, and disappear before anyone realizes what happened. This is insane. Elena was shaking now. I mean, David and I had problems, but I never thought... He's not a criminal. He's just a businessman who's bad at relationships. Elena, how did your marriage end? I asked. She looked at me, then down at her coffee. We'd been married about 4 years. Things were fine at first, not great, but fine. Then David started having business problems. His company was struggling. He needed capital. He kept asking if my family could invest. But my family doesn't have money. My dad's a teacher. My mom's a nurse. David thought I came from wealth because I went to a good college, but I had scholarships. When he realized my family couldn't help him financially, he started pulling away. Did he ever ask you for money? Directly. All the time. He'd say he needed to make payroll, or he had an investment opportunity, or he was short on rent. I gave him what I could, but I was a grad student making nothing. Eventually, I ran up credit card debt helping him. That's when I realized he'd married me thinking I had money, and when he found out I didn't, I became worthless to him. Her voice cracked on the last word. I'm so sorry, I said. I thought I was being paranoid, Elena continued. I thought maybe I was making him sound worse than he was because I was hurt by the divorce. But you're telling me he's done this before? To other women? Detective Chen pulled out more documents. We found records of at least 3 other marriages. Different states, slightly different names. He uses David Chen, David C. Lee, David Lee Chen. Each time he targets women who appear to have wealth or family money. He marries them quickly, gains access to accounts, and then either drains the money gradually or takes it in one large transaction before disappearing. How much money are we talking about? From what we can piece together, he's stolen at least $1.5 million over the past decade, probably more that hasn't been reported. Elena pressed her hands to her face. Oh my God, I was married to a con artist, a career criminal, and I had no idea. Most victims don't, Detective Chen said. That's what makes him effective. He's charming, he tells a good story, he creates a believable life. By the time people realize what's happening, he's gone. What do you need from me? Elena asked, lowering her hands. Her expression had shifted from shock to something harder. Determination. How do I help stop him? We need you to confirm that you never divorced him, Detective Chen said. We need you to make a statement documenting your marriage and his lies about the divorce proceedings. And then, if you're willing, we need you at his wedding. His wedding? You want me to watch him marry someone else? We want you to stop him from marrying someone else, I said. Elena, David is planning a wedding at the Peninsula Club in June. 300 guests, $300,000 budget, everything documented and public. If we arrest him quietly beforehand, he'll just make bail and disappear. We'll never see him again, and he'll do this to someone else in another state with another name. But if he walks into that wedding, Detective Chen continued. If he stands at that altar in front of hundreds of witnesses and his first wife appears with a marriage certificate proving he's still married to her, then we have public, documented, undeniable evidence of attempted bigamy, plus all the financial fraud he's committed to pay for this wedding. He can't run from that. He can't explain it away. You want me to object? Elena said. Like in the movies? I object because he's still married to me? Exactly like that, I said. But Elena, I need you to understand. This will be public. Humiliating for you as well. As for him, everyone will know you're the wife he abandoned. The media will cover it. Your privacy will be invaded. I don't care, Elena said immediately. If this stops him from doing to someone else what he did to me, or tried to do to me, then I don't care about my privacy. When is the wedding? June 14th. I'll be there. What do you need me to do between now and then? 2 weeks after meeting Elena, I received a phone call from a number with a French country code. Miss Sinclair, this is Christina Morrison, the real Christina Morrison. I believe you've been planning a wedding in my name. Her voice was cultured, educated, and confused. Miss Morrison, I said, relief flooding through me. Thank you for calling. Yes, someone has been using your identity to plan a wedding. I discovered it wasn't actually you and reported it to the police. I'm so sorry you've been caught up in this. The police contacted me, she said. Detective Chen explained the situation. Someone is pretending to be me to help a con artist access my family's money. This is insane. It is insane, but it's also very real. Miss Morrison, I've been communicating with whoever's impersonating you for months. She knows details about your family, your estate, your background. She's convincing. May I see the correspondence? I'd like to know what's being said in my name. Of course. I'll forward everything immediately. Mrs. Sinclair, I want to help stop this person. Detective Chen mentioned you're planning to expose him at the wedding. I want to be there. Miss Morrison, that might not be. Please call me Christina. And yes, I know it might be uncomfortable, but this man is using my family's reputation and my mother's death to perpetrate fraud. I won't let that stand. I'll fly back from France for the wedding. I want to see his face when his scheme falls apart. There was steel in her voice, old money confidence mixed with righteous anger. If you're certain, I said, I'm certain. My family lawyer will also attend. We want documentation of every fraudulent claim, every false statement. We'll pursue this legally to the fullest extent. I understand. Christina, can I ask, do you have any idea who might be impersonating you? Have you had any identity theft issues in the past? No, nothing. Which means whoever's doing this has done extensive research. They know my family history, my education, probably my social media, even though I keep it private. This is professional level fraud. Detective Chen thinks David Chen, the groom, is working with an accomplice, a woman who's willing to play the role of his fiancée to make the con more believable. Then we find out who she is, Christina said firmly, and we make sure she faces consequences too. After we hung up, I felt the weight of what we were orchestrating settling onto my shoulders. We had Elena, the abandoned first wife. We had Christina, the identity theft victim. We had Detective Chen, building a legal case. And we had me, planning a wedding that would never be completed, designed specifically to expose a criminal in the most public way possible. It was risky. It was elaborate. It could go wrong in 100 different ways. But if it worked, we'd stop a man who'd been destroying lives for over a decade. Planning a fake wedding for a con artist required a delicate balance. I had to appear to be doing my job professionally while simultaneously gathering evidence of David's fraud. That meant engaging with vendors, processing payments, and coordinating logistics, all while documenting every irregularity for Detective Chen's investigation. The irregularities started in February. David had been adamant about choosing specific vendors for certain services. Initially, I'd assumed he'd just had strong preferences. Now I understood he was directing money to companies that probably didn't exist or that he controlled. For the videography, I'd like to use Prestige Productions, David said during one of our planning calls. They did a colleague's wedding and the work was spectacular. I Googled Prestige Productions, found a website that looked professional but generic, stock photos of weddings, no specific portfolio, no reviews. The contact email was a Gmail address, not a business domain. Do you have their contact information? I asked. I'll have them reach out to you directly, David said. 2 days later, I received an email from prestige.productions, dauftoon24@gmail.com. Dear Mrs. Sinclair, David Chen referred us for videography services for his June 14th wedding. Our rate for full-day coverage is $15,000. Please wire the 50% deposit to the following account. $15,000 for videography, triple the normal rate for even high-end services. I forwarded the email to Detective Chen. She called within an hour. The account is registered to a shell company in Nevada owned by, surprise, David Chen. Under a business alias, if you transferred that money, it would have gone directly to him. How many fake vendors do you think he's using? I'm guessing several. He's probably planning to collect deposits from you for multiple services that will never be rendered, pocket the money, and disappear before the wedding day. What do I do? Stall. Tell him you need to meet vendors in person before making deposits. Say it's your policy. See what he does. I emailed Prestige Productions. Before we process any deposits, I'll need to meet with your team in person to review equipment and portfolio samples. When are you available? No response. I followed up a week later. Still nothing. They ghosted, I told Detective Chen, because they don't exist. Exactly. Document it. How many other vendors has David insisted on? 3 more, florist, lighting company, and a luxury transportation service. Run the same test with all of them. Insist on in-person meetings. See how many disappear. All 3 disappeared after I requested in-person consultations, which meant David had been planning to funnel approximately $45,000 in vendor deposits directly into his own accounts. And that was just from the obvious fake vendors. Who knew how many other schemes he had running? The real question, Detective Chen said, is how he's planning to handle the actual wedding day. If all his vendors are fake, what happens when June 14th arrives and there's no flowers, no videography, no transportation? He's not planning to be there, I said, the realization hitting me. He's planning to collect as much money as possible over the next few months and then disappear before the wedding ever happens, leaving you and the real Christina Morrison's family to deal with the fallout. But wait, if he's planning to disappear, why is the fake Christina still playing her role? Why not just have her disappear too? Good question. Let's find out who she is. Detective Chen and I set a trap for fake Christina in April, 2 months before the wedding. I scheduled a video call under the pretense of finalizing seating arrangements, but I'd prepared specific questions designed to catch her in lies, questions only the real Christina Morrison could answer. Christina, before we dive into seating, I wanted to confirm some family details. Your mother's maiden name for the place cards? Beaumont, she said without hesitation. Wrong. The real Christina's mother's maiden name was Hartley. I'd confirmed it with the actual Christina. And your father served as ambassador to which country? Belgium, fake Christina said confidently. Wrong again. Ambassador Morrison had served in Austria. One more thing, your family estate in Provence. What's the name of it? I want to make sure I have the right spelling for the program. Chateau Morrison, she said. There was no chateau. The Morrison family owned a vineyard called Domaine de Valmont. I had her. Christina, I need to be honest with you. I know you're not Christina Morrison. She froze on screen. Excuse me? The real Christina Morrison is in France. I've spoken to her directly. You're impersonating her. The question is, are you doing this willingly or did David Chen coerce you? Her face went through several expressions: panic, calculation, defiance, and finally resignation. How long have you known? She asked quietly. Long enough. Who are you really? A long pause, then. My name is Vanessa Torres. I'm an actress. David hired me 6 months ago to play his fiancée for wedding planning purposes. He said it was for a documentary project about wedding planning, that Christina was too camera shy to appear on film herself. He paid me $5,000 up front and promised another $10,000 after the wedding. You had no idea you were impersonating someone. Not at first. David gave me a script, background information, family details, how Christina would speak and act. He said he'd researched his fiancée thoroughly to create an authentic portrayal. It seemed weird, but I've done stranger acting gigs. But then, she stopped. Then what? Then I started getting suspicious. The details were too specific. The email address he had me use. Christina.morrisonmorrisonfamily.com. It seemed too real, So I Googled Christina Morrison and found articles about her family. That's when I realized I wasn't playing a fictional character. I was impersonating a real person. What did you do? I confronted David. He said Christina had agreed to let us use her identity for the documentary, that she'd signed releases. He showed me documents that looked legal. I wanted to believe him because I needed the money, but I knew something was wrong. Why didn't you walk away? Because David said if I backed out, he'd sue me for breach of contract and report me to the Actors Union for professional misconduct. He had leverage and I was scared. Vanessa, David Chen is a con artist. He's been married at least 3 times, possibly 4. He's still legally married to his first wife. This wedding you've been helping him plan is both bigamy and fraud. If it goes forward, you could be charged as an accomplice. Her face went white. Oh my God, I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Do you want to help us stop him? Yes, whatever you need. I just want out of this. Detective Chen appeared in frame. She'd been listening off camera. Vanessa, this is Detective Sarah Chen with the San Diego Police Department. If you cooperate with our investigation and testify about David's fraud, I can recommend leniency. You'll likely face charges for identity theft, but cooperation will help your case significantly. I'll cooperate, Vanessa said immediately. Just tell me what to do. Keep playing your role, Detective Chen said. Don't tell David you know. Keep communicating with Maya as if nothing's changed. We're going to let this play out until the wedding day. That's when we'll arrest him publicly with maximum evidence. He'll be at the wedding. We're going to make sure of it, I said. Vanessa, does David suspect that I know anything? I don't think so. He thinks everything's going according to plan. He talks about the wedding like it's really happening. Either he's an incredible actor or he actually believes his own con. After the call ended, Detective Chen looked at me. We have the first wife, the real victim, the fake fiancé, and a mountain of financial fraud evidence. We're ready. What about David? Does he suspect anything? If he does, he's not showing it. According to the bank records we've subpoenaed, he's still trying to funnel money through fake vendors. He's acting like a man who thinks he's about to pull off the perfect crime. 2 months until the wedding, I said. 2 months to make sure everything goes exactly wrong for David Chen. May was a careful dance of maintaining appearances while finalizing our plan. I continued meeting with David and fake Christina. Now that I knew she was Vanessa, it was surreal watching her perform. She was actually quite good. If I hadn't investigated, I might never have known she wasn't the real Christina Morrison. David seemed relaxed, confident. Whatever doubts he might have had about the plan seemed to have evaporated. He was convinced he was weeks away from a substantial payday. I can't believe the wedding is so close, he said during our final major planning meeting. Everything you've put together is spectacular, Maya. Christina and I are so grateful. Vanessa, as Christina smiled beside him, it's going to be perfect, the wedding we've always dreamed of. They were good together. Convincing. If this had been a real relationship, they might have actually worked. Just a few final logistics, I said, pulling up my tablet. The Peninsula Club needs final headcount by June 1st. We're at 287 confirmed guests. David, you mentioned your family from Hong Kong. Are they still planning to attend? Unfortunately, no, David said smoothly. My mother isn't well enough to travel. It'll just be a few cousins representing the family. I made a note. I'd verified weeks ago that David Chen's family in Hong Kong didn't exist. Another fabrication in a life built on lies. And Christina, your family from France? My father and his second wife will attend, Vanessa said, following whatever script David had given her. But most of the extended family won't make the trip. It's difficult for them so soon after my mother's passing. The real Christina Morrison would be at the wedding, along with her father and his actual wife. They'd be sitting in the audience, watching an actress impersonate Christina, while Christina watched David marry her fake self. It was going to be spectacular. Perfect, I said. Now, final payment. The balance of $175,000 is due by May 31st. Will you be wiring that from the wedding account? Actually, David said, and I saw something flicker in his expression. Calculation. I'd like to discuss a payment plan. Break it into several smaller transfers over the next 2 weeks. Cash flow management. That's unusual, but we can arrange it? May I ask why? Just being cautious with the business account. Large single transfers sometimes trigger bank holds. Smaller amounts process more smoothly. He was lying. He was planning to transfer money in smaller increments so it would be harder to trace and easier to access quickly before disappearing. I'll coordinate with the vendors, I said. Though David, I have to be honest, most high-end vendors prefer single large payments rather than installments. It's simpler for their accounting. I'm sure they'll accommodate, David said with his practiced smile. For a $300,000 wedding, they can be flexible. After they left, I'd call Detective Chen immediately. He's planning his exit, I told her. The multiple small payments, the vague timeline, he's setting up to drain the account and run. We expected this? How much has he actually paid so far? About $80,000 in deposits to legitimate vendors, the venue, the caterer, the real photographer. Another $45,000 was supposed to go to the fake vendors, but I stalled those payments. So he's out $80,000 of actual money, but he's been promising vendors another $175,000 that he probably doesn't have. What happens when the vendors don't get paid? They'll sue. The venue will come after whoever signed the contract, which is David. The real Christina Morrison's family might also get involved since their name has been used. It'll be a legal nightmare. Unless we arrest him first. When are you planning to do that? At the wedding, public documented with the first wife present to prove bigamy. But Maya, we need to make sure he actually shows up. If he suspects anything, he'll run. He'll show up, I said with more confidence than I felt. He's convinced everything's going perfectly. His ego won't let him believe anyone's outsmarted him. I hope you're right. Detective Chen, one more thing. What happens to all the guests? 300 people are going to show up expecting a wedding. Innocent people who think they're attending a legitimate ceremony. We'll have officers on hand to explain the situation and direct people to exit safely. It'll be chaotic but manageable. And Vanessa, fake Christina? She'll be arrested along with David, but as promised, we'll recommend leniency since she cooperated. She'll likely face probation and community service, not jail time. And Elena? She's ready. I've coached her on exactly what to say and when to say it. She'll walk in at the precise moment the officiant asks for objections. It'll be dramatic, but legally sound. And the real Christina Morrison? She'll be in the audience with her father and their lawyer, documenting everything. After the arrest, they'll pursue civil charges for identity theft and fraud. This is really happening. This is really happening, Detective Chen confirmed. 2 weeks, Maya. Can you hold it together for 2 more weeks? I've been holding it together for 6 months, I said. 2 more weeks is nothing. The night before the wedding, David called me. Maya, I just wanted to say thank you for everything, for believing in us, for creating something beautiful, for handling every detail perfectly. Tomorrow is going to be the best day of our lives. His voice was warm, genuine sounding. If I didn't know better, I might have believed he actually felt grateful. It's been my pleasure, I said. I'll see you tomorrow at the Peninsula Club. Everything's ready. I know it is. You're a true professional. Christina and I are so lucky to have found you. After he hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, thinking about the elaborate web of lies David had constructed. The fake fiancée, the fake vendors, the fake life built on top of a real marriage he'd never bothered to end. Tomorrow, it would all come crashing down. Tomorrow, Elena Rodriguez would walk into the Peninsula Club with a marriage certificate. Tomorrow, Christina Morrison would watch an actress impersonate her in a wedding that was never real. Tomorrow, David Chen would be arrested in front of 300 guests for bigamy and fraud. And I would have successfully planned a wedding for the second time in my career that ended not in celebration, but in handcuffs. Some people might say I was cursed, that I attracted criminal grooms and doomed weddings. I prefer to think I was vigilant, that I noticed patterns other people missed, that I refused to facilitate crimes, even when it was easier to look away. Tomorrow would prove which interpretation was correct. The morning of June 14th dawned clear and perfect, not a cloud in the sky. Temperature forecasted at 72 degrees, light breeze from the ocean, the kind of weather that wedding planners dream of. I arrived at the Peninsula Club at 7 a.m. to oversee setup. The venue was transformed. White roses and peonies everywhere, gold accents catching the morning light, crystal chandeliers sparkling, marble floors polished to mirror perfection, It looked like a fairy tale. It was about to become a crime scene. In part 3, I'll tell you about the wedding day itself, about the moment David arrived, confident and smiling, with no idea what was coming, about Vanessa struggling to maintain her role as fake Christina while knowing she'd be arrested within hours, about the 300 guests settling into their gold chairs, expecting a sophisticated celebration, about the ceremony that started exactly on time, about the officiant who had no idea he was being used to facilitate bigamy, about the moment he said those fateful words, "If anyone here has objections to this union," and about Elena Rodriguez walking through those doors in her emerald green dress, carrying documents that would destroy David's perfect crime, about the chaos that followed, the gasps, the confusion, the moment David's face went from confident to panicked, the arrival of Detective Chen and 6 uniformed officers, the arrest in front of 300 witnesses, about Vanessa's breakdown, about the real Christina Morrison standing up in the audience and revealing herself, about David's desperate attempts to talk his way out of it, to claim misunderstandings, to spin one final lie, and about me standing at the side of the ballroom with my tablet, documenting everything, knowing that I just participated in the most elaborate wedding sting operation in Peninsula Club history. Because sometimes planning the perfect wedding means making sure it never happens at all. The Peninsula Club at 7 a.m. was a study in controlled chaos. Florists arranging massive centerpieces of white roses and peonies, catering staff setting up the kitchen, the string quartet doing sound checks in the ballroom, lighting technicians adjusting the chandeliers to create that perfect warm glow, everyone doing their jobs, creating beauty, unaware they were setting the stage for a public arrest. I moved through the space with my tablet, checking off every detail. To everyone watching, I was Maya Sinclair, professional wedding planner, ensuring perfection for a $300,000 ceremony. Only I knew this wedding would never be completed. My phone buzzed. Detective Chen. I'm positioned outside with 6 officers, plainclothes blending with early arriving guests. Elena Rodriguez is with me. She's ready. Are you? I texted back. As ready as I'll ever be. David arrives at 12:30. Ceremony starts at 2 Skauko. Elena enters when officiant asks for objections. Understood. Maya, you're doing the right thing. I hope so. I pocketed my phone and continued my rounds. Patricia, the venue coordinator, approached with her clipboard. Maya, the bride's suite is ready. Hair and makeup arrive at 10:30. The groom's party has the oak room starting at 11 at Stats. Everything's on schedule. Perfect. Patricia, one thing. There may be some unexpected guests today. Just want you to be prepared for irregularities. She frowned. What kind of irregularities? The kind that might require security and crowd management. I can't say more, but trust me, okay? Maya, you're scaring me. Don't be scared. Just be ready to help people exit the venue quickly if needed, and they have security on standby. Is someone in danger? No. But someone's about to have a very bad day, and we need to make sure the innocent people aren't caught in the fallout. Patricia studied my face. This is like the Castellano wedding, isn't it? Something's wrong, and you know it. Something's very wrong. And in a few hours, everyone will know it. David Chen arrived at the Peninsula Club at exactly 12:30 p.m., right on schedule. He emerged from a Tesla Model S, wearing a perfectly tailored Tom Ford tuxedo, looking every inch the successful tech entrepreneur ready to marry into old money. His best man, a man I'd verified was actually an actor David had hired, since his real friends had probably figured out his cons years ago, followed with the ring box. Maya, David greeted me with a warm smile and a hug. Everything looks incredible. You've outdone yourself. Thank you. The oak room is ready for you and your groomsmen. Can I get you anything? Water? Champagne? I'm good, just excited. Is Christina here yet? Her car service is running about 15 minutes behind schedule, I lied smoothly. Vanessa was actually in the bridal suite, probably having a panic attack about the arrest that was coming. She'll be here by 1. Perfect. I'm going to get settled, take some photos. This is really happening, Maya. After everything we've planned, everything we've worked toward, it's finally happening. He seemed genuinely excited. Either he was an exceptional actor, or some part of him had started believing his own con. Maybe after fabricating so many weddings, he'd convinced himself this one was real. See you at the altar, I said. As he walked toward the oak room, I watched his body language. Confident, relaxed, no nervousness, no looking over his shoulder, no sense that anything was wrong. Detective Chen had been right. David's ego wouldn't let him believe he could be caught. That was about to change. I knocked on the bridal suite door at 1:00 p.m. Vanessa opened it, already in the Christina Morrison wedding dress, a $35,000 couture gown that the real Christina's family had actually purchased for their daughter's eventual wedding, which David had somehow accessed and stolen. Vanessa looked beautiful and absolutely terrified. "Maya," she whispered, pulling me inside and closing the door. The hair and makeup team was in the outer room, so we had a moment of relative privacy. I can't do this. I can't walk down that aisle knowing I'm about to be arrested. I can't. Vanessa, breathe. You're not walking down that aisle. The ceremony won't get that far. But what if something goes wrong? What if the police don't stop it in time and I actually end up fake marrying David? What if the first wife is here? She's going to object before any vows are exchanged. You'll never have to say, "I do." I promise. She pressed her hands to her face, careful not to smudge her makeup. I'm so stupid. I should have walked away the moment I realized something was wrong. I should have. You're here now. You're cooperating. That matters. Will I go to jail? Probably not. Detective Chen said if you testify, you'll likely get probation and community service. You'll be okay. I'll never work as an actress again. Not after this. Who's going to hire someone who got arrested for identity theft at a fake wedding? You might be surprised. This is going to be a huge story. Actress helps expose con artist. That could actually help your career if you frame it right. She laughed bitterly. Always looking on the bright side, there was a knock on the door. The hairstylist, "Christina, we need to put your veil on. 50 minutes until photos." "Coming," Vanessa called, her voice shifting into Christina Morrison's cultured tones. She looked at me. "How do you do this? Stay calm when everything's about to explode?" "Practice," I said. "Lots of practice." At 1:30 p.m., guests began arriving. 300 people in designer clothes, elegant gowns, expensive suits. Old money and new money mixing in the Peninsula Club's reception area. Champagne flowing, string quartet playing softly, ushers directing people to their seats, everyone expecting a sophisticated celebration of love. I scanned the crowd, looking for specific people. There, the real Christina Morrison, wearing a navy dress, sitting with her father, Ambassador Morrison, and his wife. They looked calm, but I could see the tension in Christina's jaw. She was about to watch someone impersonate her in her own stolen wedding dress. There, Detective Chen, wearing an elegant pantsuit positioned near the back with a clear view of the altar. 6 plainclothes officers scattered throughout the room, ready to move on her signal. And somewhere outside, Elena Rodriguez in her emerald green dress, waiting for her cue to walk through those doors and destroy David Chen's perfect crime. My phone buzzed. "Elena, I'm ready. I've never been more ready for anything in my life." I texted back, "Wait for the officiant to ask for objections. Then make your entrance. We've got you." What if I freeze? What if I can't do it? "You will. You've been carrying this for 7 years. Today you set it down. Thank you, Maya, for believing me, for stopping him. You're stopping him. I'm just a wedding planner." 300 guests settled into their gold chivalry chairs, facing the elaborate floral arch where David Chen stood with his fake best man and the officiant, a man named Reverend Thompson who had no idea he was being used to facilitate bigamy. The string quartet finished their prelude piece, a moment of silence. Then they began the processional, Pachelbel's canon in D. The most traditional, most expected choice. David had insisted on it. The doors opened. Vanessa appeared in the Christina Morrison dress, holding a bouquet of white roses and peonies, looking like a magazine cover bride. Her face was serene, controlled. Whatever panic she'd felt earlier, she'd buried it under her acting training. She walked down the aisle on the arm of her own father, a man David had hired to play Ambassador Morrison, since the real ambassador was sitting in the audience watching this farce. I watched the real Christina's face as the fake Christina walked past. Her expression was carefully neutral, but her hands were clenched in her lap. Vanessa reached the altar. The fake father kissed her cheek and sat down. She took her place beside David, who was looking at her with what appeared to be genuine affection. Maybe he'd started to believe his own performance too. Reverend Thompson smiled at the crowd. Welcome everyone to this joyful celebration of love. We are gathered here today to witness the union of David Chen and Christina Morrison in holy matrimony. I stood at my usual position, side of the ballroom, tablet in hand, monitoring everything. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure people could hear it. Marriage is a sacred bond, Reverend Thompson continued, built on trust, honesty, and commitment. David and Christina have chosen to build their lives together, to face the future as partners, to honor and cherish each other for all their days. Trust, honesty, commitment. The irony was almost too much. I glanced at Detective Chen. She was watching David intently, her hand resting casually near her jacket where I knew she carried her badge and service weapon. I'd like to begin with a reading from Corinthians. Reverend Thompson said, "Love is patient, love is kind." The familiar verses washed over the room. Guests stabbed at their eyes. The setting sun streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows, catching the crystal chandeliers and creating sparkles of light across the marble floor. It was beautiful. Perfect. Everything a $300,000 wedding should be. It was also a crime scene waiting to happen. Reverend Thompson finished the reading and smiled at David and Vanessa. David and Christina have chosen to write their own vows. David, would you like to begin? David took Vanessa's hands, looked into her eyes, and began speaking. Christina, when I met you 2 years ago, my life changed. You showed me what it means to truly partner with someone, to build something bigger than yourself. You've taught me about grace, about family, about legacy. Standing here today, promising you my future, is the greatest honor of my life. It was a good speech, well written, emotionally resonant, completely false. I saw Vanessa's eyes shimmer with tears, real tears, because even though this was fake, even though she was being arrested soon, some part of her was moved by the performance. That's how good David was. He could sell the lie so well that even his accomplice believed it. Christina, Reverend Thompson said, your vows. Vanessa took a breath. David, you came into my life when I needed someone most. After losing my mother, after feeling lost and alone, you showed me that hope still existed, that love could still find me, that I deserved partnership and joy. Today, I promise you my loyalty, my trust, and my heart. For all my days, several guests were crying now. The woman sitting next to me pulled out a tissue. If I didn't know the truth, I'd be crying too. They were that convincing. Beautiful, Reverend Thompson said. Now, before we proceed with the exchange of rings, I must ask the traditional question that has been part of wedding ceremonies for centuries. This was it, the moment we'd been waiting for. I saw Detective Chen shift slightly in her seat, preparing to move. I saw the real Christina Morrison lean forward, her hand reaching for her father's arm. I saw David Chen smile confidently, completely unaware that his entire world was about to detonate. Reverend Thompson raised his voice slightly, addressing the crowd. If anyone here present knows of any lawful reason why these two should not be joined in marriage, speak now or forever hold your peace. In most weddings, this is a formality, a relic from a time when objections were common. No one ever actually objects. This wasn't most weddings. The doors at the back of the ballroom opened. Elena Rodriguez walked in. Elena looked different than when I'd met her in her modest San Diego apartment 5 months ago. She'd had her hair professionally styled. She wore the emerald green dress like armor. She carried a leather portfolio that I knew contained her marriage certificate, bank records, emails, all the evidence of David Chen's lies. She walked down the aisle with her head high, heels clicking against the marble floor. 300 pairs of eyes turning to watch her. David's face went from confident to confused to pale in about 3 seconds. I object, Elena said, her voice clear and steady. I object because David Chen is already married. To me, the ballroom exploded in gasps and whispers. Vanessa's hand flew to her mouth. Real shock, not acting. She'd known this was coming, but the reality of it was different than the anticipation. David found his voice. Elena, what are you... This is insane. We're divorced. You know we're divorced, are we? Elena stopped at the altar, facing him directly. Because I don't have any divorce papers, David. You told me you filed them. You told me your lawyer was handling everything. You've been telling me that for a year, but it was a lie. We're still married. She pulled out the first document from her portfolio. This is our marriage certificate. December 12th, 2017, San Diego, California. David Chen and Elena Rodriguez. She held it up so the crowd could see. I saw phones coming out, people recording, this moment being documented from every angle. David, Reverend Thompson said, his face confused. Is this true? No. Well, yes. We were married, but we got divorced. This is a misunderstanding. Then show them the divorce papers, Elena said calmly. If we're divorced, there should be public record. Show everyone the proof. David's mouth opened, closed. Yet they're with my lawyer. I don't have them with me, obviously. Why would I bring divorce paper to my wedding? Because you knew I might show up? Elena suggested. Because some part of you knew this was illegal. David, I checked with the county clerk last week. No divorce filing exists. We are still legally married. Which means this, she gestured to the elaborate ballroom, the flowers, the ceremony, is bigamy, which is a felony in California. Elena, you're not well, David said, and I heard the manipulation starting, the gaslighting. You've been struggling since our separation. You're confused. I'm not confused. I'm a pharmaceutical researcher with a PhD. I'm quite capable of reading legal documents, or in this case, the lack of them. Detective Chen stood up from her seat in the back. That's correct. There are no divorce filings for David Chen and Elena Rodriguez in any California county. David's head snapped toward her. Who are you? Detective Sarah Chen, San Diego Police Department. She pulled out her badge as she walked down the aisle. The 6 plainclothes officers stood as well, positioning themselves at the exits. Mr. Chen, I'm afraid this cannot proceed. You're still legally married to Elena Rodriguez. Attempting to marry Christina Morrison while still married would be bigamy under California Penal Code Section 281. The crowd was in chaos now. People standing, talking, pointing. Reverend Thompson looked like he wanted to disappear. Vanessa was frozen at the altar, tears streaming down her face. And David was calculating. I could see it in his eyes, looking for exits, looking for an explanation that would work, looking for a way out. He didn't find one. Furthermore, Detective Chen continued, we have evidence that you've committed wire fraud by soliciting deposits for vendors that don't exist, that you've attempted to steal the identity of Christina Morrison for financial gain, that you've perpetrated similar schemes against multiple women over the past decade. This is ridiculous, David said, but his voice was losing its confidence. This is harassment. I want my lawyer. You'll have the opportunity to call your lawyer from the station. David Chen, you're under arrest for attempted bigamy, wire fraud, and identity theft. 2 uniformed officers appeared from the side entrance. They'd been waiting there, out of sight. Turn around and place your hands behind your back, Detective Chen said. David didn't move. He was looking at Vanessa. Christina, tell them. Tell them we're really engaged. Tell them this is all a misunderstanding. Vanessa stepped back from him. I'm not Christina. What? My name is Vanessa Torres. I'm an actress. David hired me to impersonate Christina Morrison. I've been playing a role for 6 months. None of this is real. The crowd's chaos reached a new level. People were shouting questions, demanding explanations. Christina? David looked desperately toward where he thought Christina's father was sitting, the actor he'd hired to play Ambassador Morrison, but it was the real Christina Morrison who stood up. I'm Christina Morrison, she said, her cultured voice cutting through the noise. That woman is wearing my dress. That woman has been using my name. That woman has been impersonating me with your help, and my family will be pursuing legal action for identity theft, defamation, and fraud. David looked at her, then at Elena, then at Vanessa, then at Detective Chen and the officers closing in. This is insane, he said, but his voice cracked. You're all insane. This is my wedding, my wife, my life. Mr. Chen, turn around now, Detective Chen said firmly. David made a decision. He bolted. Ran toward the side exit, pushing past chairs, past guests, past the shocked officiant. He made it exactly 12 feet before one of the plainclothes officers tackled him. They went down hard, David struggling, the officer professionally restraining him. Within seconds, 3 more officers were there, pulling David's arms behind his back, securing handcuffs. Get off me. This is assault. Someone filmed this. This is police brutality. Sir, stop resisting, the officer said, calmly. You're making this worse for yourself. They hauled David to his feet. His perfect Tom Ford tuxedo was torn at the shoulder. His hair was messed up. His face was red with rage and panic. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw the moment he realized. You, he said. You knew. This whole time you knew. I'm a wedding planner, I said calmly. I plan celebrations of love and commitment. What you were doing wasn't love. It wasn't commitment. It was fraud. So yes, I knew, and I helped stop you. You set me up. This whole wedding, you planned it to catch me. I planned it because you hired me to. Everything else, the investigation, the evidence gathering, the arrest, that's on you. You chose to con people. You chose to commit fraud. You chose to try to marry someone while still legally married. I just made sure the right people knew about it. David's face twisted with rage. You're going to regret this. My lawyers are going to destroy you. I'll sue you for entrapment, for conspiracy, for what? Detective Chen interrupted. For doing her job, for cooperating with a police investigation. Good luck with that. Now let's go. You have the right to remain silent. I suggest you exercise it. They started walking him toward the exit. The crowd parted, people pulling out phones to record, this moment being documented from every angle. As they reached the doors, David turned back one more time. This isn't over. Yes, it is, Elena said quietly. It's finally over. The moment David Chen was removed from the ballroom, pandemonium erupted. 300 guests, all talking at once, demanding explanations, asking questions. Some heading for exits, while others pressed forward to see what was happening at the altar. Patricia, the venue coordinator, was trying to manage the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We're asking everyone to exit the ballroom in an orderly fashion. No one was listening. I got on the microphone at the DJ booth. May I have everyone's attention, please? The room didn't quite quiet down, but most people stopped talking. I understand this is shocking and confusing. Here's what I can tell you. David Chen is under arrest for multiple felonies, including bigamy and fraud. The wedding you came to witness was based on false pretenses. Christina Morrison, I gestured to the real Christina, was never engaged to David Chen. Her identity was stolen and used without her consent. The woman at the altar in the wedding dress is an actress named Vanessa Torres, who was hired to impersonate Christina. Vanessa, still standing at the altar in the $35,000 dress, raised her hand in a small, mortified wave. The police are here to ensure everyone's safety and to conduct their investigation. You're all free to leave. I apologize that you came all this way for a wedding that couldn't happen, but I assure you this outcome is far better than the alternative. What alternative? Someone shouted. The alternative where a con artist successfully married into a wealthy family, stole money, and disappeared before anyone realized what happened. That alternative, this way, he's in custody and justice is being served. Another voice. Who's paying for this wedding? We took time off work. Some of us traveled across the country. Those are questions for the police and the attorneys. I said, right now I'm asking everyone to exit the venue so the authorities can do their jobs. Slowly, reluctantly, people began filing out. Some stopped to talk to Christina Morrison and her father, offering support. Some stopped to stare at Vanessa, who looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Some stopped to tell me I'd done the right thing, or to ask if I'd known all along, or to demand their gifts back since there was no wedding. It took 45 minutes to clear the ballroom. When it was finally empty except for police, the primary players, and venue staff, I sat down on one of the gold chairs and let myself breathe. Detective Chen approached. Well, that was something. That was insane, I corrected. Please tell me we got everything we needed. We got everything and more. Bigamy attempted in front of 300 witnesses. His first wife on record stating they'd never divorced. The fake bride admitting she was hired to impersonate the real victim. The real victim confirming identity theft. It's an airtight case. What happens to Vanessa? She'll be processed and released on her own recognizance since she cooperated. She'll face charges, but as promised, we'll recommend probation and community service. And David's looking at 5 to 10 years. Bigamy, wire fraud, identity theft, federal and state charges. His bail hearing is Monday, but given his history of running cons in multiple states, I'm pushing for him to be held without bail. Good. Elena Rodriguez approached, still holding her leather portfolio. She looked exhausted, but also lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Thank you, she said to both of us. For believing me, for stopping him, for making sure he couldn't do this to anyone else. Thank you for being brave enough to walk through those doors, I said. That took courage. It took rage, Elena corrected with a small smile. 7 years of rage. But yes, also courage. Christina Morrison and her father joined us. The real Christina looked at Vanessa, who was being gently questioned by another officer across the room. She's very good, Christina said. If I hadn't known better, I'd have believed she was me. She's terrified, I said. She thought this was a strange acting gig. By the time she realized it was fraud, she was in too deep. Will she go to jail? Probably not. She cooperated fully once she understood what was happening. Good. Christina surprised me. I'm angry she impersonated me, but I don't think she deserves to have her life destroyed over this. David's the predator. She's just another victim. Her father, the real Ambassador Morrison, spoke up. Miss Sinclair, I want to thank you as well. If you hadn't investigated, if you'd just planned the wedding as requested, David might have successfully used my daughter's identity to commit fraud on a massive scale. Our family is grateful. I'm just glad I noticed the patterns early enough to do something about it. You did more than notice, the ambassador said. You took action. You risked your business, your reputation to stop a criminal. That's admirable. Patricia appeared with her clipboard, looking shell-shocked. Maya, what do we do about everything? The food is prepared, the bar is stocked, the venue is set up for a reception that's not happening. I looked around the beautiful ballroom. The flowers still perfect, the candles still glowing, the place setting still pristine. Let me make some calls, I said. There are 3 homeless shelters within 10 miles. They could use a gourmet meal. We'll have the catering staff pack everything up and deliver it. And the flowers? Hospital, nursing homes, anywhere people could use something beautiful. The gifts? Return them all with apology notes explaining the situation and offering refunds. Patricia nodded, making notes. Maya, in 20 years of working at the Peninsula Club, this is the strangest wedding I've ever been part of. In 21 years of planning weddings, same. I agreed. As the reality of what we'd accomplished began to sink in, I felt my phone buzz. Text from Michelle Yang. I'm watching Dufa News. Did you really just expose a bigamist at his own wedding on purpose? I texted back. Long story. We'll explain later, but yes, on purpose. You're insane. Probably. Also a hero. That man could have hurt so many more people. That's what I keep telling myself. Another text, this one from Lauren. Just saw the news about the Peninsula Club wedding arrest. Maya, was that you? Did you pull another Castellano situation? I did. I'm buying you dinner. You need to tell me everything. And then we need to talk about why you keep getting clients who are criminals. I don't seek them out. I just notice them. Pattern recognition is both a gift and a curse. Proud of you. I pocketed my phone and looked at the scene before me. Police documenting evidence. Venue staff beginning cleanup. Elena talking to Detective Chen. Christina speaking with her father. Vanessa sitting alone at the altar, still in the stolen dress, looking small and lost. I walked over to her. Vanessa, she looked up with red, swollen eyes. I'm so sorry. I know I keep saying that, but I don't know what else to say. You helped us stop him. That matters. I helped him for 6 months before I helped you. That matters too. You didn't know. I suspected. I should have walked away sooner, but I needed the money, and I convinced myself it was fine, that I was just being paranoid. Classic victim thinking. I sat down next to her. David Chen is a professional con artist. He's been doing this for over a decade. He's fooled multiple women, multiple banks, multiple institutions. You're not weak or stupid for falling for it. You're human. I'm an actress who got cast in the role of my life and didn't realize it was a crime until it was too late. But you did realize it, and you cooperated. That's what separates you from him. She wiped her eyes, smudging the professional makeup. What happens to me now? You'll be arraigned, probably tomorrow. You'll get a public defender or hire your own lawyer. You'll plead guilty to identity theft, reduce charges because you cooperated. You'll probably get probation and community service. No jail time if you keep cooperating through the trial. And my career? I don't know. But Vanessa, you're good. Really good. You convinced me you were Christina Morrison for months. That's skill. Maybe when this is over, you rebrand. The actress who took down a con artist. That's a compelling story. You think anyone will hire me after this? I think people love redemption arcs, and yours is pretty good. You realized you were part of something wrong and you helped stop it. That's more than most people do. She managed a small smile. You're very optimistic for someone who just watched a wedding explode. I've had practice. The moment David Chen was removed from the ballroom, pandemonium erupted. 300 guests, all talking at once, demanding explanations, asking questions, some heading for exits while others pressed forward to see what was happening at the altar. Patricia, the venue coordinator, was trying to manage the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm. We're asking everyone to exit the ballroom in an orderly fashion. No one was listening. I got on the microphone at the DJ booth. May I have everyone's attention, please? The room didn't quite quiet down, but most people stopped talking. I understand this is shocking and confusing. Here's what I can tell you. David Chen is under arrest for multiple felonies, including bigamy and fraud. The wedding you came to witness was based on false pretenses. Christina Morrison, I gestured to the real Christina, was never engaged to David Chen. Her identity was stolen and used without her consent. The woman at the altar in the wedding dress is an actress named Vanessa Torres, who was hired to impersonate Christina. Vanessa, still standing at the altar in the $35,000 dress, raised her hand in a small, mortified wave. The police are here to ensure everyone's safety and to conduct their investigation. You're all free to leave. I apologize that you came all this way for a wedding that couldn't happen, but I assure you this outcome is far better than the alternative. What alternative? Someone shouted. The alternative where a con artist successfully married into a wealthy family, stole money, and disappeared before anyone realized what happened. That alternative, this way, he's in custody and justice is being served. Another voice. Who's paying for this wedding? We took time off work. Some of us traveled across the country. Those are questions for the police and the attorneys. I said, right now I'm asking everyone to exit the venue so the authorities can do their jobs. Slowly, reluctantly, people began filing out. Some stopped to talk to Christina Morrison and her father, offering support. Some stopped to stare at Vanessa, who looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. Some stopped to tell me I'd done the right thing, or to ask if I'd known all along, or to demand their gifts back since there was no wedding. It took 45 minutes to clear the ballroom. When it was finally empty except for police, the primary players, and venue staff, I sat down on one of the gold chairs and let myself breathe. Detective Chen approached. Well, that was something. That was insane, I corrected. Please tell me we got everything we needed. We got everything and more. Bigamy attempted in front of 300 witnesses. His first wife on record stating they'd never divorced. The fake bride admitting she was hired to impersonate the real victim. The real victim confirming identity theft. It's an airtight case. What happens to Vanessa? She'll be processed and released on her own recognizance since she cooperated. She'll face charges, but as promised, we'll recommend probation and community service. And David's looking at 5 to 10 years. Bigamy, wire fraud, identity theft, federal and state charges. His bail hearing is Monday. But given his history of running cons in multiple states, I'm pushing for him to be held without bail. Good. Elena Rodriguez approached, still holding her leather portfolio. She looked exhausted, but also lighter, like a weight had been lifted. Thank you, she said to both of us. For believing me, for stopping him, for making sure he couldn't do this to anyone else. Thank you for being brave enough to walk through those doors, I said. That took courage. It took rage, Elena corrected with a small smile. 7 years of rage. But yes, also courage. Christina Morrison and her father joined us. The real Christina looked at Vanessa, who was being gently questioned by another officer across the room. She's very good, Christina said. If I hadn't known better, I'd have believed she was me. She's terrified, I said. She thought this was a strange acting gig. By the time she realized it was fraud, she was in too deep. Will she go to jail? Probably not. She cooperated fully once she understood what was happening. Good. Christina surprised me. I'm angry she impersonated me, but I don't think she deserves to have her life destroyed over this. David's the predator. She's just another victim. Her father, the real Ambassador Morrison, spoke up. Miss Sinclair, I want to thank you as well. If you hadn't investigated, if you'd just planned the wedding as requested, David might have successfully used my daughter's identity to commit fraud on a massive scale. Our family is grateful. I'm just glad I noticed the patterns early enough to do something about it. You did more than notice, the ambassador said. You took action. You risked your business, your reputation to stop a criminal. That's admirable. Patricia appeared with her clipboard, looking shell-shocked. Maya, what do we do about them? Everything. The food is prepared, the bar is stocked, the venue is set up for a reception that's not happening. I looked around the beautiful ballroom. The flowers still perfect, the candles still glowing, the place setting still pristine. Let me make some calls, I said. There are 3 homeless shelters within 10 miles. They could use a gourmet meal. We'll have the catering staff pack everything up and deliver it. And the flowers? Hospital, nursing homes, anywhere people could use something beautiful. The gifts? Return them all with apology notes explaining the situation and offering refunds. Patricia nodded, making notes. Maya, in 20 years of working at the Peninsula Club, this is the strangest wedding I've ever been part of. In 21 years of planning weddings, same. I agreed. As the reality of what we'd accomplished began to sink in, I felt my phone buzz. Text from Michelle Yang. I'm watching Dufa News. Did you really just expose a bigamist at his own wedding? On purpose? I texted back. Long story. We'll explain later, but yes, on purpose. You're insane. Probably. Also a hero. That man could have hurt so many more people. That's what I keep telling myself. Another text, this one from Lauren. Just saw the news about the Peninsula Club wedding arrest. Maya, was that you? Did you pull another Castellano situation? I did. I'm buying you dinner. You need to tell me everything. And then we need to talk about why you keep getting clients who are criminals. I don't seek them out. I just notice them. Pattern recognition is both a gift and a curse. Proud of you. I pocketed my phone and looked at the scene before me. Police documenting evidence. Venue staff beginning cleanup. Elena talking to Detective Chen. Christina speaking with her father. Vanessa sitting alone at the altar, still in the stolen dress, looking small and lost. I walked over to her. Vanessa, she looked up with red, swollen eyes. I'm so sorry. I know I keep saying that, but I don't know what else to say. You helped us stop him. That matters. I helped him for 6 months before I helped you. That matters too. You didn't know. I suspected. I should have walked away sooner, but I needed the money, and I convinced myself it was fine, that I was just being paranoid. Classic victim thinking. I sat down next to her. David Chen is a professional con artist. He's been doing this for over a decade. He's fooled multiple women, multiple banks, multiple institutions. You're not weak or stupid for falling for it. You're human. I'm an actress who got cast in the role of my life and didn't realize it was a crime until it was too late. But you did realize it, and you cooperated. That's what separates you from him. She wiped her eyes, smudging the professional makeup. What happens to me now? You'll be arraigned, probably tomorrow. You'll get a public defender or hire your own lawyer. You'll plead guilty to identity theft, reduce charges because you cooperated. You'll probably get probation and community service, no jail time if you keep cooperating through the trial. And my career? I don't know. But Vanessa, you're good. Really good. You convinced me you were Christina Morrison for months. That's skill. Maybe when this is over, you rebrand. The actress who took down a con artist. That's a compelling story. You think anyone will hire me after this? I think people love redemption arcs, and yours is pretty good. You realized you were part of something wrong and you helped stop it. That's more than most people do. She managed a small smile. You're very optimistic for someone who just watched a wedding explode. I've had practice. The David Chen bigamy case made national news within hours. By that evening, my phone was ringing off the hook. Reporters wanting interviews, cable news shows requesting appearances, even a few book agents reaching out about my story. I ignored them all. This wasn't about me. This was about stopping a predator before he could hurt anyone else. In part 4, I'll tell you about the trial 6 months later, about David's defense team trying to claim entrapment, insisting that I'd manipulated him into the situation. about Elena's testimony describing years of lies, about Vanessa's breakdown on the stand when she explained how she'd been recruited, about Christina Morrison's victim impact statement read to the court while David sat emotionless in his orange jumpsuit, about the moment the jury returned a guilty verdict on all counts, about discovering that David had at least 6 other victims we'd never known about, women who came forward after seeing the news coverage, women who'd been too ashamed to report the cons before, but now had courage because someone had finally stopped him. About the sentence 10 years in federal prison, plus restitution to all his victims, plus permanent registration as a con artist in a database that financial institutions could check, and about where everyone ended up after the dust settled. Elena, finally free to move on with her life. Vanessa, completing her community service and booking her first legitimate role. Christina, becoming an advocate for identity theft victims. And me learning, again, that sometimes the most important thing a wedding planner can do is recognize when a wedding should never happen at all.
Before we continue, if you're enjoying this story, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of our upcoming tales. And while you're at it, drop a like and let us know what you think in the comments below. Now, let's get back to it.
I woke up the morning after David's arrest to discover my face was on the news. Not just local news, national news. I sat in my kitchen with coffee, scrolling through my phone in disbelief, watching clip after clip from different networks, CNN, wedding planner exposes bigamist in dramatic ceremony interruption, NBC, con artist arrested at his own fake wedding, ABC, first wife crashes wedding, reveals groom still married. And the headlines kept getting more sensational. The wedding planner who became a detective, $300K wedding ends in handcuffs, bigamy bust, how one vendor saved multiple victims. Someone had leaked or sold footage from the wedding. I watched horrified as video of Elena's entrance played on loop. Her walking down the aisle in that emerald dress, David's face going pale. The moment the police moved in, my phone started ringing at 6:47 a.m. A producer from Good Morning America. I didn't answer. It rang again. The Today Show, again. Local news, again. A podcast about true crime. By 8 a.m., I'd received 43 calls, 97 emails, and my office voicemail was full. Ethan found me at the kitchen table, staring at my phone like it was a bomb. "You need to turn that off," he said gently. "I can't. What if Detective Chen needs to reach me? What if there's something about the case? Then she'll call me. Maya, give me the phone." I handed it over. He powered it down and set it aside. "Breathe," he said. "You did nothing wrong. You helped stop a criminal. The media circus is temporary." "Easy for you to say. Your face isn't being broadcast on national television." "Actually, it kind of is." He pulled out his own phone and showed me an article from the LA Times. There was a photo of us from 3 years ago at a wedding industry event. The caption, "Maya Sinclair and her husband Ethan, an architect." Sinclair gained national attention in 2021 after exposing a groom who was poisoning his fiancée and has now stopped another criminal wedding. Oh God, they're making me sound like some kind of vigilante wedding planner. "You kind of are," Ethan said with a slight smile. "I'm not. I'm just someone who pays attention and acts when something's wrong." That's literally what vigilantes do. Vigilantes break the law. I worked with the police. There's a difference. Tell that to the media. He scrolled through more articles. So look at this one. Is your wedding planner secretly investigating you? And this one, the dark side of wedding planning, when vendors become whistleblowers. Maya, you're a phenomenon. I'm a wedding planner who's had 2 very unusual cases. That doesn't make me a phenomenon. My work phone, which Ethan hadn't confiscated, buzzed. I grabbed it. Text from Michelle. "Have you seen the news?" "Unfortunately, yes. You're trending on Twitter. Schatzer wedding planner hero." "Please tell me you're joking." "I'm not. There's also Jar Bigamy bust and Jar David Chen exposed." "Maya, you broke the internet." "I broke a con artist's scheme. The internet did this to itself." "Fair point. How are you holding up?" "Hiding in my kitchen, phone turned off, contemplating changing my name and moving to Alaska." "Don't. You did something incredible. Own it." Another text came in, this one from Lauren. I'm fielding interview requests on your behalf. Netflix wants to make a documentary. 3 different production companies want to option the story, and Dateline NBC wants an exclusive. I don't want any of that. I know, but you should talk to someone. Control the narrative before it controls you. Let me send you the contact from my literary agent. She handled my book deal after the Derek case. She's good at protecting clients while maximizing opportunities. I put the phone down and looked at Ethan. This is insane. This is America, he corrected. We love a good scandal. Wedding drama plus criminal exposure plus dramatic arrest. That's ratings gold. I just wanted to stop someone from hurting people. You did, and now you're dealing with the consequences of success. Welcome to being a public figure. I don't want to be a public figure. I want to plan weddings and live my life. Too late, Ethan said, not unkindly. The question now is how you navigate this. Do you hide and let other people tell your story? Or do you control the narrative yourself? I hated that he was right. At Detective Chen's urging, I agreed to participate in a press conference. We need to get ahead of the misinformation, she explained over the phone. Social media is running wild with theories. Some people think you entrapped David. Some think this was a publicity stunt. Some think David's the victim of a conspiracy. We need facts on record from official sources. So on June 16th, 2 days after the arrest, I found myself sitting at a table in the San Diego Police Department's media room, flanked by Detective Chen on one side and the district attorney on the other. At least 24 reporters crowded the room, cameras rolling, phones recording. The DA, a woman named Patricia Reeves with iron gray hair and a no-nonsense demeanor, spoke first. Thank you all for coming. I'm here to provide facts about the arrest of David Chen on June 14th at the Peninsula Club. Mr. Chen has been charged with attempted bigamy under California Penal Code Section 281, wire fraud under Federal Statute 18 U.S.C. 1343, and identity theft under California Penal Code Section 530.5. These are serious felonies carrying significant prison time. She outlined the basic facts. David's existing marriage to Elena Rodriguez, the fake Christina Morrison, the financial fraud scheme, the dramatic arrest. I want to emphasize that Ms. Maya Sinclair, the wedding planner, acted as a cooperative witness throughout our investigation. She did not entrap Mr. Chen. She did not manipulate events. When she discovered evidence of fraud, she reported it to law enforcement and assisted our investigation. Her actions likely prevented Mr. Chen from successfully defrauding the Morrison family and potentially other victims. Then it was Detective Chen's turn. David Chen is a serial con artist. We've now identified at least 6 previous victims spanning 12 years in 4 states. He has a pattern: target wealthy women, marry them quickly, gain access to finances, drain accounts, and disappear. With Elena Rodriguez, his scheme didn't work because she didn't have the money he expected. So he stayed legally married to her while pursuing other targets. The Christina Morrison scheme was his most ambitious yet, a wealthy old money family with substantial assets. If the wedding had proceeded, if he'd successfully accessed Morrison family resources, the financial damage could have been catastrophic. How much money did he steal in previous cons? A reporter asked. We're still calculating the total, but preliminary estimates suggest at least $2.3 million from identified victims. Gasps from the press corps. Ms. Sinclair, another reporter called out, how did you first suspect something was wrong? All eyes turned to me. I leaned toward the microphone, my hands shaking slightly under the table. I've been planning weddings for 21 years, I said. You develop instincts about relationships, about dynamics between couples, about what's normal and what's concerning. With David Chen and the woman I believed to be Christina Morrison, several things felt off. The bride was unavailable for months, offering various excuses. When she finally did appear, she knew specific details, but the emotional connection felt rehearsed. Then I found a wedding announcement showing David had been married before, and I couldn't find divorce records. That's when I contacted Detective Chen. Did you ever confront David Chen directly? No. Detective Chen advised me to continue planning the wedding while the investigation proceeded. That way, we could gather evidence and ensure David didn't flee before we could build a case. Some people online are calling you a hero. Others say you overstep professional boundaries. How do you respond? I took a breath. I don't think of myself as a hero. I think of myself as someone who saw evidence of a crime and reported it. That's what any responsible person should do. As for professional boundaries, yes, investigating a client is unusual, but so is discovering your client is planning to commit bigamy. When I'm faced with choosing between professional boundaries and preventing harm, I'll choose preventing harm every time. Would you do it again? Without hesitation. Another reporter, what do you say to other wedding vendors who might suspect something's wrong with a client? Trust your instincts, document what you observe. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Contact law enforcement or organizations that can help. You're not required to prove a crime is happening. That's the police's job. You just need to report concerns and let professionals investigate. Mrs. Sinclair, you were also involved in the Castellano case in 2021 where a groom was poisoning his fiancée. Do you think you attract criminal clients? I almost laughed. No, I don't think I attract them. I think criminals exist in all industries, all social circles, all economic brackets. Most wedding vendors see red flags, but dismiss them as not my business or probably nothing. I just happen to be someone who doesn't dismiss them. That's not me attracting criminals. That's me noticing patterns other people ignore. What message do you have for David Chen's other victims? I looked directly at the cameras. Come forward, tell your stories. You're not alone, you're not to blame, and you don't need to be ashamed. David Chen is a professional con artist. He's skilled at manipulation, at making people believe his lies. Being fooled by him doesn't make you stupid or weak, it makes you human. But coming forward helps build the case against him and might prevent him from hurting others in the future. After the press conference, Detective Chen walked me out through a back entrance to avoid the media scrum. That was good, she said. You came across as credible, thoughtful, professional, exactly what we needed. I feel like I just painted a target on my back. Every con artist in America now knows I investigate clients. Good, maybe they'll avoid hiring you and you can plan actual weddings without drama. One can hope. The press conference changed everything. Within 48 hours, 3 women contacted the San Diego Police Department to report that David Chen had defrauded them. By the end of the week, that number was 6. By the end of June 9, Detective Chen called me with updates as each new victim emerged. Victim number 4, Sarah Mitchell, married to David in Portland in 2015 under the name David Lee. He drained her business account, $180,000, and disappeared. She never reported it because she was embarrassed. Victim number 5, Jennifer Park, married in Seattle in 2017. He convinced her to take out a second mortgage on her house, then left with the $350,000. She reported it to police, but he'd already changed states and identities. Victim number 6, Amanda Zhao, married in San Jose in 2019. He was with her for 18 months, slowly transferring money from her investment accounts to offshore accounts. Total loss, $425,000. She thought it was her fault for not monitoring her finances better. Every story was heartbreaking. Every story was variations on the same theme. David found women with money, made them fall in love, married them quickly, gained access to their finances, and destroyed them financially and emotionally before disappearing. How did he keep getting away with it? I asked Detective Chen during one of our calls. He never stayed in one place long enough to build a pattern. He used slightly different names in different states. He'd wait a year or two between cons, letting heat die down. And most importantly, his victims didn't report him. They were too embarrassed, too ashamed, or too convinced it was somehow their fault. Without reports, there was no pattern for law enforcement to detect. Until now, because you stopped him publicly, because Elena spoke up, because the media coverage emboldened other victims to come forward. Maya, we now have enough to charge him with federal RICO violations, Racketeer Influenced, and Corrupt Organizations Act. This wasn't just individual cons. This was an organized, systematic criminal enterprise spanning over a decade. How much prison time is he facing? Conservatively, 20 to 30 years. Possibly more if all victims testify and all charges stick. He's 40 years old. Even with good behavior, he won't be released until he's in his 60s. Good. There's something else, Detective Chen said. We found victim 0. Victim 0, David's first wife, the first woman he married before Elena. Her name is Patricia Wong. She came forward after seeing the news. How long ago? 15 years. He was 25, she was 24. They met in college, married young, and within a year he'd emptied her trust fund, $150,000. Her grandparents had left her. Then he disappeared. She spent years trying to find him to finalize a divorce, eventually gave up. She's been legally married to him this entire time without knowing it. So Elena wasn't even his first existing wife. She was the second. Correct. Which means David's attempted marriage to fake Christina would have been his fourth concurrent legal wife. The man's not just a bigamist, he's a serial bigamist. That's not even a real term. It is now. Patricia Wong's story ran in the New York Times 2 weeks later. The first victim, how David Chen's decades-long con started in college. The article included a photo of a young Patricia and David at their college graduation, looking happy and in love. She described the slow realization that the man she'd married was systematically stealing from her, the way he'd convinced her to give him power of attorney over her trust fund for tax purposes, the way he'd transferred everything to accounts she couldn't access and then vanished, leaving her with nothing but debt and a marriage license to a ghost. I thought I was the only one, when Patricia was quoted as saying. I thought I'd been uniquely stupid. Finding out there were others, finding out he'd done this again and again for 15 years is horrifying but also validating. I wasn't a bad judge of character. I was targeted by a professional predator. The article sparked another wave of victims coming forward. Women he'd dated but not married. Women he'd conned out of smaller amounts. Women who'd suspected something was wrong but hadn't had the proof. By the time David's trial began in September, the prosecution had testimony from 14 victims, spanning 15 years in 6 states. It was overwhelming. And it made me realize if I hadn't noticed those red flags, if I hadn't investigated, if I hadn't stopped the fake Christina Morrison wedding, David would have kept going. Another victim, another con, another life destroyed. David Chen's trial began on September 18th in San Diego Federal Court. The prosecution's case was led by Assistant U.S. Attorney James Morrison, no relation to the Morrison family, though David's defense team tried to claim that coincidence proved bias. I testified on the second day, walking into that courtroom, seeing David sitting at the defense table in an orange jumpsuit, his expensive lawyers flanking him. It was surreal. This was the man I'd spent 6 months planning a fake wedding with, the man who'd smiled at me and thanked me for my incredible work. He didn't look at me as I took the stand. Ms. Sinclair, Morrison began, please tell the court how you first became involved with David Chen. I walked the jury through everything. The initial consultation, the missing bride, the too perfect story that felt rehearsed, the discovery of his previous marriage, the decision to contact police. At any point, did you confront Mr. Chen with your suspicions? No. Detective Chen advised me to continue planning the wedding so we could gather evidence without alerting him that he was under investigation. Did you ever encourage Mr. Chen to commit fraud? No, I planned the wedding he hired me to plan. The fraud, the fake vendors, the identity theft, the bigamy, that was all his design. I just documented it. David's lawyer, a man named Marcus Feldman, who probably cost $800 an hour, cross-examined me. Miss Sinclair, isn't it true that you have a history of interfering in your clients' relationships? I have a history of noticing when clients are in danger and reporting it to authorities. The Castellano case in 2021, you orchestrated a medical emergency at that wedding, did you not? I ensured a woman who was being poisoned received medical care that revealed evidence of that poisoning. Yes. You seem to make a habit of sabotaging weddings. I make a habit of preventing crimes. There's a difference. Do you investigate all your clients, run background checks, search for criminal records? I do preliminary research on all clients, yes. It's standard practice to verify identity and ensure legitimate payment sources. If I discover concerning information during that research, I investigate further. So you're not just a wedding planner, you're a self-appointed private investigator. I'm a wedding planner who takes her ethical obligations seriously. If I see evidence of a crime, I report it. That's not being a private investigator, that's being a responsible citizen. Feldman tried several more angles, suggesting I'd entrapped David, implying I was seeking publicity. insinuating I had financial motives for sabotaging the wedding. None of it landed. The evidence was too clear, the pattern too established. Elena Rodriguez testified on day 4. She was composed, detailed, devastating. He told me we were divorced, she said, her voice steady. For over a year, every time I asked for the paperwork, he said his lawyer was handling it. He showed me fake documents, fake email exchanges. He was so convincing. I believed him completely. And while he was telling me we were divorced, he was planning to marry someone else. Someone whose identity he'd stolen. Someone whose family had the money mine never did. Ms. Rodriguez, Morrison asked gently, why didn't you verify the divorce yourself? Because I trusted him. Because after 7 years of marriage, even a bad marriage, you trust that the person you married has some basic honesty. I was wrong. Vanessa Torres testified on day 6. She looked different than she had at the wedding, less polished, more real. She'd cut her hair short, wore minimal makeup. He told me it was for a documentary, she said, that Christina Morrison was his real fiancée, but she was too camera shy to appear on film. He needed an actress to play her for wedding planning footage. He gave me a script, background information, even coached me on how Christina would speak and move. It seemed weird, but I've done stranger acting jobs. When did you realize it wasn't legitimate? About 2 months in, the details were too specific, the email address seemed too real. I Googled Christina Morrison and found articles about her family. That's when I confronted David. What did he say? He showed me documents that looked like signed releases. He said Christina had agreed to let us use her identity. But I knew something was wrong. I needed the money, and I was scared of what would happen if I backed out. Ms. Torres, did you know David Chen was planning to commit bigamy? Not until Miss Sinclair told me, I swear. If I'd known, I never would have participated. I thought I was helping with a weird documentary project. I didn't realize I was helping commit fraud and identity theft. The jury looked sympathetic. Vanessa was clearly a victim too, just a different kind. Christina Morrison testified on day 8. She was poised, articulate, and angry. My mother died in October, she said. It was devastating. While I was in France grieving, processing her death, managing her estate, someone was using my name, my family's reputation, my mother's death as props in a fraud scheme. They stole my identity, my background, my grief. They used it to try to steal my family's money. That's not just fraud. That's violation on a level I'm still processing. Ms. Morrison, did you ever give David Chen or anyone else permission to use your identity? Absolutely not. I've never met David Chen. I've never heard of him. The first I knew of any of this was when Detective Chen contacted me to say someone was impersonating me in a fake wedding. How has this affected you? I'm afraid to date. I'm afraid to trust anyone. I'm hypervigilant about my privacy, my information, my identity. I've spent thousands of dollars on identity monitoring services. I've had to change passwords, secure accounts, verify my identity to multiple institutions because someone stole it. The financial cost is significant, but the emotional cost is worse. I feel violated, exposed, vulnerable, and angry. Very, very angry. Patricia Wong, victim 0, testified on day 10. She was now 40 years old, a successful attorney, remarried with 2 children. But talking about David Chen clearly still hurt. I was 24, she said, fresh out of college, in love, convinced I'd found my soulmate. He convinced me to give him control of my trust fund, said it was for tax optimization. I trusted him completely. Within 6 months, the money was gone and so was he. Now, I spent years trying to find him to finalize a divorce. Eventually, I gave up, got a court to declare him legally absent, and moved on with my life. Seeing his face on the news 15 years later, finding out he'd done to multiple other women what he'd done to me, it was like reopening a wound I thought had healed. 6 more victims testified over the next week. Each story was variations on the same theme: trust, manipulation, financial devastation, emotional trauma. By the time the prosecution rested, the jury looked nauseated. David had gone from confident to slumped, his expensive lawyers working overtime to make him look sympathetic. The defense's strategy was to paint David as a troubled man with a spending problem, not a calculated predator. They brought in a psychologist who testified about impulse control disorders and relationship addiction. It didn't work. The evidence was too overwhelming, the pattern too clear, the victims too credible. On November 3rd, after 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned guilty verdicts on all counts: attempted bigamy, 3 counts for 3 existing marriages; wire fraud, 12 counts for fake vendors and stolen funds; identity theft, 2 counts for Christina Morrison and the fake vendors; RICO violations, 1 count for systematic criminal enterprise. David showed no emotion as the verdicts were read. His lawyers had probably prepared him for this outcome. The courtroom was packed with victims: Elena, Christina, Vanessa, Patricia, the other women. When the final guilty verdict was read, I heard someone sob with relief. Judge Martinez scheduled sentencing for December 15th. As we filed out of the courtroom, Elena caught up with me in the hallway. "Thank you," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you for believing me, for stopping him, for making sure he faced justice." "You did that," I said. "You walked into that wedding. You told the truth. You testified. This is your victory." "It's ours," she corrected. "All of us, every woman who came forward, every person who refused to let him get away with it." Christina Morrison joined us, followed by Vanessa, Patricia, and 3 other victims. We stood in that courthouse hallway, 9 women whose lives had been touched by David Chen's crimes, and for a moment we just existed together in the aftermath of justice. "What happens now?" Vanessa asked. "Now we heal," Patricia said, "and we make sure everyone knows what he did so no one else falls for it." Sentencing day was cold and gray, appropriate for the occasion. The courtroom was packed again. All the victims, media, law enforcement, court officials, and David Chen standing before Judge Martinez in his orange jumpsuit, about to learn how much of his life he'd spend in prison. "Before I pronounce sentence," Judge Martinez said, "I'm going to allow victim impact statements. Several victims have requested the opportunity to address the defendant." Elena went first. "David Chen stole 7 years of my life," she said, standing at the podium, her voice steady. 7 years where I thought I was divorced, but actually wasn't. 7 years where I couldn't fully move on because legally I was still married to him. 7 years of lies, of manipulation, of him borrowing money while planning to marry other women. He destroyed my ability to trust. He taught me that love could be a weapon, and he almost got away with it. The only reason I'm standing here, the only reason he's facing consequences, is because one wedding planner paid attention and refused to look away. I hope this sentence reflects the severity of his crimes and the number of lives he destroyed." Christina Morrison went second. "David Chen stole my identity during the worst period of my life. My mother had just died. I was grieving, vulnerable, barely functional, and someone used my pain, my family's reputation, my mother's death as props in a Freud scheme. That's not just criminal. It's evil. He had no remorse, no hesitation, no conscience. He saw vulnerable people as opportunities. I hope he never gets the chance to do that again." Patricia Wong went third. "I was David Chen's first victim. 15 years ago, when I was young and naive and in love, he destroyed me financially and emotionally. For 15 years, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only one stupid enough to fall for his act. Finding out there were others, that he'd been doing this systematically for over a decade, was both horrifying and validating. I wasn't uniquely foolish, I was targeted. We all were. And now finally he's being held accountable." 4 more victims gave statements, each one more devastating than the last. When they finished, Judge Martinez addressed David directly. "Mr. Chen, you have engaged in a systematic, calculated, predatory pattern of behavior spanning 15 years. You have destroyed lives, stolen millions of dollars, and shown no remorse whatsoever. You targeted vulnerable women, exploited their trust, and discarded them when they were no longer useful. You are a danger to society and a serial fraudster of the worst kind." She paused, looking at the sentencing guidelines in front of her. "On the bigamy charges, I sentence you to 3 years per count, to run consecutively, 9 years total. On the wire fraud charges, I sentence you to 5 years per count for the most serious charges, to run consecutively, 25 years total. On the identity theft charges, I sentence you to 2 years per count to run consecutively, 4 years total. On the RICO charge, I sentence you to 15 years to run consecutively with other sentences. Total sentence, 53 years in federal prison with no eligibility for parole for at least 25 years. Additionally, you are ordered to pay full restitution to all victims, totaling $2,847,000, plus court fees and penalties. Gasps from the courtroom. 53 years. David Chen was 40 years old. Even with time served and good behavior, he'd be in his 80s before release. Effectively, a life sentence. David's face remained blank, but I saw his hand shake slightly as the guards prepared to escort him out. Judge Martinez wasn't finished. Mr. Chen, I want you to understand something. You are not a victim of circumstance. You are not someone who made mistakes. You are a predator who systematically destroyed lives for personal gain. The women you targeted were not opportunities. They were human beings with hopes, dreams, and trust that you exploited. I hope you spend every day of your sentence thinking about the pain you caused. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. David was escorted out, his lawyers already preparing appeals that would likely go nowhere. In the hallway afterward, the victims hugged, cried, celebrated him quietly. It's over, Elena said. It's finally over. Is it though? Vanessa asked. I mean, he's in prison, but we all still carry what he did. The trauma doesn't just disappear. No, Patricia agreed. But now we carry it together, and we carry it knowing he'll never do this to anyone else. Christina looked at me. Mrs. Sinclair, what you did, stopping him, gathering evidence, organizing this whole thing, you saved my family millions of dollars and probably saved other women from becoming victims. How do we thank you for that? You don't, I said. You heal. You move forward. You help other people recognize predators like David. That's the thank you. Will you keep planning weddings? Elena asked. I will, though I might get a reputation as the wedding planner criminals should avoid. Good, Christina said. Let them avoid you. Let the rest of us, the people planning real weddings based on real love, let us find you instead. The David Chen case changed my business fundamentally. Some potential clients were scared off. They didn't want a wedding planner who might investigate them. Good. If my scrutiny scares you, you probably have something to hide. But others, many others, specifically sought me out. They wanted a planner who actually cared about more than centerpieces and timelines, who would pay attention to their relationships, notice red flags, speak up if something seemed wrong. In part 5, the final part, I'll tell you about where everyone ended up. Elena, finally free after getting her official divorce decree, dating again for the first time in years, rebuilding trust slowly. Christina, using her family's resources to create an identity theft prevention foundation, turning her victimhood into advocacy. Vanessa, completing her community service, getting legitimate acting work, booking a role in a crime procedural playing, ironically, a con artist. Patricia, writing a book about financial fraud in romantic relationships, becoming a sought-after expert on recognizing and preventing romantic cons. And me, continuing to plan weddings, but with a new approach. More questions, more scrutiny, more willingness to walk away from bookings that don't feel right. I'll tell you about the wedding I planned 6 months after David's sentencing for a couple who came to me specifically because of the Chen case. They wanted a planner who would care about their relationship, not just their event, who would ask hard questions and expect honest answers. I'll tell you about the training program Michelle and I developed, teaching wedding vendors to recognize signs of fraud, abuse, and criminal behavior. About the hundreds of vendors we've trained who've gone on to stop their own problematic situations. And I'll tell you about what I've learned from 21 years and over 650 weddings. That love is real, but so is deception. That wedding planning isn't just about creating beautiful moments. It's about bearing witness to people's lives and caring about what that witness reveals. Because some brides need flowers and timelines, and some brides need someone to notice they're marrying a con artist and stop it before it's too late. I'll never apologize for being that someone. 1 year after David Chen's sentencing, I received an invitation in the mail, not a wedding invitation this time, something different. You are cordially invited to the first annual Survivors Gala benefiting the Morrison Foundation for Identity Theft Prevention and Financial Fraud Awareness, honoring those who stood up, spoke out, and stopped a predator. The gala was being held at, of all places, the Peninsula Club, the same venue where David's fake wedding had exploded in spectacular fashion. I called Christina Morrison. "You're having the gala at the Peninsula Club, really?" Reclaiming the space, Christina said cheerfully, "David tried to use that venue for fraud. We're using it for healing and prevention. Poetic justice." Who else is invited? All the victims. Detective Chen, the DA, you, obviously, some advocates and journalists who covered the case. And this is the interesting part. We're launching the Foundation's training program that night, the one Michelle Yang helped us develop. The vendor training program? Exactly. We've already had interest from over 300 wedding industry professionals who want to learn how to recognize and report fraud. Michelle's running it. You're listed as a consulting expert, didn't she tell you? Michelle mentioned something about a project. She didn't say it was this big. It's very big. We have funding for 3 years, partnerships with industry organizations, and a curriculum that covers everything from financial fraud to domestic violence to identity theft, wedding vendors, event planners, venue coordinators, anyone who works with couples in vulnerable moments. We're teaching them to notice what you noticed. That's incredible, is necessary, and it wouldn't exist without you, so please come to the gala. Let us honor what you did. The Peninsula Club looked different than it had for David's failed wedding. Instead of white and gold, the decor was silver and blue, Christina's chosen colors, deliberately nothing like the fake wedding. Instead of roses and peonies, the arrangements featured wildflowers and greenery, representing growth and resilience. Instead of 300 unsuspecting guests, there were about 100 people who all knew exactly why they were there. I arrived to find Elena Rodriguez standing near the entrance, wearing a stunning red dress and smiling more genuinely than I'd ever seen her smile. "Maya," she hugged me, "you look amazing. Come meet my boyfriend. You're dating. 6 months now. His name is Marcus. He's a teacher, patient, kind, completely transparent about everything. After David, I needed someone who was the opposite of secretive and manipulative. Marcus is aggressively honest. It's refreshing. Marcus turned out to be a warm, friendly man who clearly adored Elena. As we chatted, I watched Elena's body language, relaxed, open, happy. This was what healthy looked like. "Elena tells me you're the one who saved her from that wedding," Marcus said. "Thank you." "Thank for that. I wouldn't have met her otherwise. I'm glad something good came from it." Vanessa Torres approached next, looking confident in a way she hadn't at the trial. She'd cut her hair into a short, edgy style and had visible tattoos on her arms that I hadn't noticed before. "Maya, I was hoping you'd be here." She hugged me. "I want you to meet someone. This is my girlfriend, Rachel." "You're dating? 9 months?" Turns out impersonating a straight bride for a con artist helped me realize I'm not straight. She laughed. "Silver linings. Rachel knows everything about the case. We met in a support group for people who'd been involved in legal situations. She's a recovering addict who got caught up in a bad situation. We bonded over making mistakes and trying to be better. How's your career?" "Actually great. I booked a recurring role on that crime show Criminal Intent. I play a con artist who helps the police solve cases. The irony isn't lost on me, but it's good work, good money, and everyone on set knows my background. Turns out Hollywood loves a redemption story." Patricia Wong found me next. She was there with her husband and teenage daughter, a family unit that David had tried to destroy 15 years ago, but had ultimately survived and thrived. "Maya, this is my husband, Tom, and our daughter, Sarah." "Tom, this is the wedding planner I told you about." Tom shook my hand warmly. "Patricia says you're the reason David finally faced justice. Our family is grateful." Patricia spent years wondering if she was crazy for thinking he was a predator. Now she knows she was right all along. "Mom wrote a book," Sarah added proudly. "It's being published next month. Financial Fraud in Romantic Relationships, How to Spot a Con Artist Before They Destroy Your Life." "I have a copy pre-ordered," I said. "You're in it," Patricia said with a smile. Chapter 12, Yorenting, When Professionals Notice What Others Miss. "I interviewed you extensively, remember?" I did remember. Patricia had called me 6 months ago for what ended up being a 3-hour conversation about pattern recognition, professional ethics, and the responsibility that comes with noticing things. Christina Morrison appeared then, elegant as always, but with a new confidence that hadn't been there a year ago. "Everyone's here," she announced. "Let's begin." The gala program started with Christina at the podium. 1 year ago, I was in France mourning my mother when I received a phone call that changed my life. Someone was using my identity, using my grief, using my family's reputation to perpetrate fraud. I felt violated, exposed, helpless. She paused, looking at the audience. But I wasn't helpless, because people noticed, people paid attention, people acted. Maya Sinclair noticed inconsistencies and investigated. Detective Chen built a case. Elena Rodriguez had the courage to walk into a wedding and tell the truth. Vanessa Torres cooperated despite her own fear. Patricia Wong and 8 other victims came forward to testify. We stopped a predator, we prevented future victims, we held someone accountable who thought he was untouchable. And now we're using that experience to help others. She gestured to a screen behind her, which lit up with the foundation's logo. The Morrison Foundation for Identity Theft Prevention and Financial Fraud Awareness exists because of this case. Our mission is threefold: educate professionals who work with vulnerable populations, support victims of financial fraud, and advocate for stronger laws against romantic cons. We've already trained 347 wedding industry professionals in fraud recognition. We've provided financial assistance to 23 victims of romantic cons who need help rebuilding their lives. We've drafted legislation currently being considered in California that would make romantic fraud a specific criminal category with enhanced penalties. This is just the beginning, and it exists because people refused to look away when something was wrong. She invited Elena to speak next. Elena walked to the podium, no longer the frightened woman I'd met in San Diego over a year ago. She was powerful now, transformed by truth and justice. "I was married to David Chen for 7 years," she said. "Or I thought I was. He was already pulling away emotionally, but I was still legally bound to him. When I finally learned he was planning another wedding, when Maya showed me the evidence, I had a choice. I could walk away, let him marry someone else, avoid the publicity and embarrassment of admitting I'd been fooled. Or I could walk into that wedding and tell the truth. Walking into the Peninsula Club in that green dress was the hardest thing I've ever done. I was terrified, but I was also angry. Angry at what he'd done to me, angry at what he was trying to do to Christina, angry at the years he'd stolen and the lies he'd told. And when I said I object, when I showed that marriage certificate and watched David's perfect con fall apart, I took my power back. For the first time in 7 years, I wasn't his victim. I was the person who stopped him. If you're in a situation where you think something's wrong, but you're afraid to speak up, afraid of being embarrassed, afraid people won't believe you, speak up anyway. Your voice might save someone else. It might save yourself." The room erupted in applause. Detective Chen spoke next, providing statistics about the case's impact. 14 victims identified, over 2.8 million in restitution ordered, 53 years in prison. And critically, a pattern now documented in federal databases so future victims could find information about David's history. "This case demonstrates why reporting matters," Detective Chen said. "For 15 years, David operated with impunity because victims didn't report. They were ashamed, embarrassed, or thought law enforcement wouldn't care. But when Maya Sinclair reported her suspicions, when Elena Rodriguez testified, when other victims came forward, that's when we could build a case. That's when justice became possible. If you're a professional who works with couples or families, if you're a wedding vendor, therapist, financial advisor, attorney, and you see something concerning, report it. You're not required to investigate. You're not required to prove anything. Just report your concerns to appropriate authorities and let us investigate. That's how we stop predators." Then it was my turn. I walked to the podium, looking at the faces in the audience. Victims who'd become survivors, professionals who were learning to notice, advocates who were changing systems. "I'm a wedding planner," I began. "For 21 years, I've been creating celebrations of love and commitment. That's what I'm trained to do. That's what I'm good at. But sometimes, rarely thankfully, But sometimes I discover that what looks like love is actually something much darker: control, manipulation, fraud, abuse. When that happens, I have a choice. I can tell myself it's not my business, that I should just plan the wedding and collect my fee and let adults make their own decisions. That's the easy choice. That's the safe choice. Or I can pay attention. I can trust my instincts. I can investigate when things don't add up. I can report what I find to people who can help. That's the hard choice. That's the risky choice. I've made the risky choice twice now, with the Castellano wedding 3 years ago, where the groom was poisoning his bride, and with the Chen wedding, where the groom was committing bigamy and fraud. Both times I risked my business, my reputation, my peace of mind. Both times I do it again without hesitation. I looked at Christina, at Elena, at Vanessa, at Patricia and the other victims, because these women matter more than my comfort. Their safety matters more than my professional boundaries. Their lives matter more than my convenience. I've planned over 650 weddings in 21 years. Most of them have been exactly what they appeared to be: celebrations of genuine love between people building lives together. But 2 of them were crimes in progress. And if I'd looked away, if I'd told myself it wasn't my business, those crimes would have succeeded. So here's what I want everyone in this room to understand. If you see something wrong, you have a choice. You can look away and tell yourself someone else will handle it. Or you can be the person who handles it. You can be the person who notices, the person who reports, the person who saves someone. It won't always be easy. It might cost you, but I promise you this: the cost of looking away is higher. The cost of silence is someone else's suffering. And that's a cost I'm not willing to pay. So to all the wedding vendors here tonight, learning how to recognize fraud, thank you for caring. To all the professionals who work with vulnerable people, thank you for paying attention. To all the survivors, thank you for your courage. And to anyone watching who might be in a dangerous or fraudulent situation right now, there are people who see you, people who believe you, people who will help you. You just have to ask, you just have to speak up. Your voice matters. The standing ovation lasted nearly 2 minutes, which brings me to now, to today, to this moment where I'm sitting in my office reflecting on everything that's happened. It's been 18 months since David Chen's arrest, a year since his sentencing, 6 months since the gala. Life has mostly returned to normal, or what passes for normal when you've been involved in 2 major criminal cases that made national news. I still plan weddings, still coordinate timelines and vendors and family dynamics, still create beautiful celebrations of love, but I do it differently now. I ask harder questions during consultations. I pay closer attention to couple dynamics. I trust my instincts immediately instead of second-guessing myself. And I have no hesitation walking away from bookings that feel wrong. Some potential clients are put off by my scrutiny. Good. If my questions make you uncomfortable, you're probably not someone I want to work with anyway. But most clients appreciate it. They want a planner who cares about their actual relationship, not just their event. Who will notice if something's wrong and speak up? Who treats wedding planning as bearing witness to people's lives, not just staging a performance? My business has actually grown. Not in volume. I still only take about 20 weddings per year, but in quality. I work with couples who are genuinely building partnerships, who communicate well, who treat each other with respect. And when I see that, when I witness real love and healthy commitment, it's even more beautiful because I know what the alternative looks like. 3 months ago, I had a consultation with a couple named Jennifer and Mark. They came in engaged, planning a fall wedding, budget around $100,000. Nice people, sweet together. Everything seemed fine, except Mark did most of the talking, except Jennifer looked at him before answering questions. Except when I asked about her vision for the wedding, she said, "Whatever Mark wants is fine with me." Red flags, subtle ones, but there. I asked to speak with Jennifer privately, said I needed to discuss some bride-specific details. Mark hesitated, but agreed. The moment we were alone, I asked, "Jennifer, are you happy? Really, truly happy with this relationship?" She started crying immediately. "He's so controlling," she said. He monitors my phone, my email, my bank account. He tells me what to wear, who I can see, what I can eat. But he says it's because he loves me, because he wants to protect me. And I don't know, maybe he's right. Maybe I do need help making decisions. Maybe I'm too emotional, too impulsive, too... Jennifer, stop. Everything you just described is abuse. Emotional abuse, financial abuse, controlling behavior, that's not love. That's control disguised as care. But I said yes when he proposed. I agreed to marry him. If I back out now, then you back out now. Better to cancel a wedding than to marry someone who's abusing you. I gave her resources, hotline numbers, Detective Chen's card, information about the training program we'd developed. I told her she had options, that she didn't have to marry someone who controlled her. I also told Mark I couldn't take their wedding, that my schedule was full, that I was referring them to other planners. He wasn't happy. He argued, tried to negotiate, insisted they wanted me specifically. I held firm. No explanation beyond, I'm fully booked. 2 weeks later, Jennifer called me. I left him, she said. I called off the wedding, moved out of the apartment we shared. I'm staying with my sister. And Maya, thank you. Thank you for asking that question. Thank you for noticing what I'd been trying to ignore for 2 years. Are you safe? I'm safe. He's not happy, but he's not dangerous. Just controlling. Just someone who thinks love means ownership. I'm so glad I didn't marry him. Me too. I wanted to tell you something else. I told 3 of my friends what happened, how you asked that question, how it made me realize I was in an abusive relationship. And one of my friends started crying because she's in a similar situation, and she didn't realize it until I told my story. Is she getting help? She's in therapy now, figuring things out. She might leave her partner, she might not, but at least now she knows it's a choice, that she has options. That's the ripple effect. One question, one conversation, one person willing to ask, are you okay? And mean it. Jennifer told her friend is getting help. That friend might tell someone else. The awareness spreads. That's how you change things. Not with grand gestures, but with small acts of noticing and caring. The Morrison Foundation's training program has now reached over 800 wedding industry professionals. Photographers, florists, caterers, DJs, venue coordinators, planners like me, people who work weddings every weekend, who see couples in vulnerable moments, who have access to dynamics most people never witness. Michelle Yang runs the program. She's brilliant at it, taking her experience from Safe Witness Coalition and adapting it specifically for wedding vendors. You're not therapists, she tells every training session. You're not law enforcement. You're not required to diagnose abuse or prove fraud. You're just required to notice patterns and report concerns to appropriate authorities. The training covers recognizing signs of financial abuse and fraud, identifying controlling behavior and intimate partner violence, understanding cultural differences versus red flags, documenting concerns without overstepping boundaries, reporting suspicion to appropriate resources, protecting yourself legally and professionally and critically. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. You're not being paranoid or judgmental. You're being observant. We've already had success stories. A photographer noticed a bride had bruises she tried to hide with makeup. She pulled the bride aside, asked if she was safe, provided domestic violence resources. The bride called a hotline that night, left her abusive fiancé 3 days later. A caterer noticed a groom trying to control every aspect of his fiancé's food intake, commenting on her weight constantly, forbidding certain foods. She mentioned it to the venue coordinator, who mentioned it to the bride's mother, who staged an intervention. The wedding was postponed while the couple went to therapy. They eventually broke up, but not before the bride got help. For an eating disorder, the groom had been encouraging. A DJ noticed that a bride never smiled or made eye contact with her groom, just went through motions like a robot. During a break, he asked her coordinator if she'd noticed anything concerning. The coordinator talked to the bride, who admitted she'd been pressured into the engagement by her family and felt trapped. The wedding was called off. The bride is now in therapy, working on boundaries with her family. 800 vendors trained, dozens of concerning situations noticed, multiple weddings stopped or postponed, lives potentially saved. That's the legacy of the David Chen case. Not just one con artist in prison, but a network of aware, trained, caring professionals who won't look away when something's wrong. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd ignored my instincts with Lauren Castellano and Derek Hastings, if I'd dismissed her weight loss as diet stress, if I'd ignored her obvious illness, if I'd just planned the wedding and collected my fee. She'd be dead, poisoned by the man she almost married. Derek would be a wealthy widower, probably already, targeting his next victim. With Christina Morrison and David Chen, if I'd accepted the excuses about the missing bride, if I'd believed the too perfect story, if I'd transferred those vendor deposits without question, David would have stolen hundreds of thousands of dollars. The real Christina's identity would have been compromised. Fake Christina, Vanessa, would be criminally liable with no cooperation deal, and David would be planning con number 15 or 20 by now. Instead, both men are in prison. Both sets of victims are free and healing and rebuilding their lives. Because I paid attention, because Michelle kept records, because Elena walked through those doors, because Christina stood up and said, "That's not me," because Vanessa cooperated, because Detective Chen investigated, because a jury believed, because a system that doesn't always work actually worked this time. It's not always like that. I know systems fail constantly. I know victims often aren't believed. I know justice is rare. But sometimes, if you notice something wrong and you refuse to look away and you do the hard work of reporting and gathering evidence and supporting victims through the process, sometimes justice happens. Sometimes you save lives. Sometimes the con artist goes to prison and the victims go free. And that possibility, that hope, that tiny chance that speaking up might matter, that's what keeps me paying attention. I've been planning weddings for 21 years now. I've witnessed over 650 ceremonies. I've seen every possible variation of love, commitment, family dynamics, and human behavior. Here's what I know. Most people getting married are doing it for the right reasons. They're in love. They're building partnerships. They're committed to growing together. The vast majority of weddings I plan are exactly what they appear to be. Celebrations of genuine connection. But some aren't. Some weddings are performances, some relationships are cons, some love is actually control, and pretending otherwise, refusing to acknowledge that darkness exists alongside light, doesn't make anyone safer. Your instincts are usually right. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Don't dismiss that internal alarm system. Don't talk yourself out of what you're observing. Trust yourself. Professional boundaries matter, but they're not absolute. There's a difference between overstepping and preventing harm. When you see evidence of danger, fraud, or abuse, you have a moral obligation that supersedes professional norms. Documentation is crucial. Write down what you observe, keep records, take notes. If you ever need to report something, evidence matters. Specific dates, specific statements, specific behaviors, that's what builds cases. You can't save everyone. Some people aren't ready to be saved. Some situations are too complex. Some victims will make choices you don't understand. That's not your failure. All you can do is offer support, provide resources, and respect people's autonomy while making sure they know they have options. But sometimes you can save someone. And when you do, when you ask the right question or notice the right pattern or report the right concern and someone's life changes because of it, that matters more than anything else in the world. The cost of speaking up might be high, but the cost of silence is higher. Yes, reporting concerns might damage relationships. Yes, investigating clients might cost you business. Yes, getting involved might put you in uncomfortable positions. But the alternative, watching someone get hurt when you could have prevented it, that cost is unbearable. Systems need people to make them work. Laws, hotlines, resources, support networks, they only function if people actually use them. If you see something and you don't report it because someone else will handle it, you're the reason systems fail. Recovery takes time. Lauren is still healing from Derek's poisoning 3 years later. Elena is still working through trust issues from David's manipulation. These things don't have tidy timelines. Trauma stays with you, but survival is possible. Growth is possible. Moving forward is possible. And finally, love exists, but so does predation. I still believe in love. I've seen too much genuine connection, too Too many healthy partnerships, too many people building beautiful lives together to become cynical. But I also believe in acknowledging reality. Predators exist, con artists exist, abuses exist, and refusing to see them doesn't make them disappear. It just makes them more successful. 2 weeks ago, I planned a wedding for a couple named Sarah and James. They'd come to me specifically because of the Chen case. "We want a planner who actually cares about relationships," Sarah had said. "Someone who'll tell us if they see red flags, even if it's uncomfortable." I interviewed them extensively, asked hard questions, watched how they interacted, looked for concerning patterns. I found none. They communicated well. They made decisions together. They disagreed sometimes, but resolved conflicts respectfully. They treated each other as equals. They had healthy boundaries with their families. They both had careers, friends, interests outside the relationship. They were just two people who loved each other and wanted to celebrate that with family and friends. The wedding was at a vineyard in Napa. Intimate, just 80 guests. Sarah wore a simple lace dress she'd chosen herself. James wore a navy suit and cried when she walked down the aisle. The vows they'd written were beautiful, honest, vulnerable, full of specific promises about how they'd treat each other, support each other, grow together. "I promise to listen when you speak," Sarah said, "to trust your competence, to give you space when you need it and presence when you want it." "I promise to be worthy of your trust," James said, "to be honest even when it's hard, to build a partnership where we both thrive, to love you not because I need you, but because choosing you every day makes me better." When they kissed as newlyweds, everyone cried, including me, because that's what weddings are supposed to be: genuine, honest, celebratory. After the reception, Sarah found me as I was packing up. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for asking us the hard questions, for making sure we were doing this for the right reasons, for caring about our actual relationship and not just the event." "That's my job," I said. "No, most wedding planners' job is logistics and aesthetics. You do something else. You bear witness. You care. That matters." She hugged me, and I felt the weight of 21 years of wedding planning settle into something that finally made complete sense. This was what I was supposed to be doing, not just creating beautiful events, but caring about the lives behind those events, noticing patterns, asking questions, speaking up when something was wrong, celebrating when everything was right, being the person who paid attention, that being the person who refused to look away. If you've stayed with me through this entire story, through Lauren's poisoning, through David's bigamy, through all the investigation and trials and aftermath, thank you. I know it's a lot. I know it's heavy. I know some of you might be listening because you recognize something in these stories, something from your own life or someone you love. If that's you, hear this. You're not alone. You're not crazy. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Trust yourself. Reach out for help. Tell someone. Report it. Leave if you need to. There are people who will believe you, people who will help you, people who will stand with you. I've seen it happen. I've been part of it happening. You matter. Your safety matters. Your life matters. And to everyone else, to the wedding vendors and event professionals and service workers and anyone who interacts with people in vulnerable moments, pay attention. Notice patterns. Trust your instincts. Speak up when something's wrong. You might be the only person who notices. You might be the only person who asks the hard question. You might be the only person standing between a victim and a predator. That's a big responsibility. But it's also an incredible opportunity to make a difference. 2 weddings, 2 criminal grooms, 2 cases where paying attention saved lives. I don't plan to make it 3. But if it happens, if I meet client number 6551 who's planning a wedding that shouldn't happen, I'll be ready. I'll notice. I'll investigate. I'll report. I'll do whatever it takes to prevent harm. Because that's not just good wedding planning. That's being human. And sometimes being human means destroying someone's perfect day to save their actual life. I'm at peace with that. I hope you are too. I'm sitting in my office right now, the same office where I met Lauren and Derek 4 years ago, the same office where David Chen first video called me with his too perfect story, the same office where I've met with over 650 couples, most of them genuine, some of them concerning, 2 of them criminal. My calendar is open on my screen. Next week, I have 3 consultations scheduled. New couples, new stories, new possibilities. Will they be genuine partnerships? Probably. Will one of them raise red flags? Maybe. Will I investigate if they do? Absolutely. Because I'm Maya Sinclair. I've been planning weddings for 21 years. I've seen the best of love and the worst of deception. And I'll spend the rest of my career making sure I know the difference. Some brides need flowers and timelines. Some brides need someone to save their lives. I'm ready for both.
Thanks so much for joining us on this journey. If you loved this tale, please subscribe to Tin Tea Tales for more stories like this one. Hit that like button, leave a comment with your thoughts, and check out our latest uploads on the channel. We'd love to hear from you, and we'll see you in the next one.